Hello again, friends, and welcome back to another slap-happy edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru right here on a very happy spring day. I guess it's not summer yet, is it? Not summer yet, but soon to be. I'm your host, the great Brian Lass, screaming at you, and of course, the star of this here Drive Thru, Mr. Jim Cornette.
I'm Robin Leach for Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. I'm screaming, and I don't know why. Oh, and by the way, you are our friends out there in podcast land. You are our friends, our longtime close personal friends, as the great Mean Gene Okerlund would have said. And I am indeed Jim Cornette, and I'm happy today, Brian. I'm in a good mood. I've got a Disney movie going on over here at the castle. I'm telling you, since I have spoken to you last here on the air, well, that works both ways. Since I last spoke to you last here on the air, I've watched no current modern, aka bad wrestling. And not only that, but last night, the last thing that I saw before dusk, not the last thing I saw entirely, but the last thing that I saw outside before dusk, I go out to take the garbage out and put it in the receptacle, and there is a little bunny rabbit right under the bush next to my driveway, just kind of hopping back and forth and wiggling its nose and being pleasant. And there on the power line connecting me to the grid right above it was a beautiful bright red cardinal, because of course when you think of Louisville, you think of the Cardinals, the beautiful Cardinals. And then I looked in the back, the castle grounds, the rear quadrant, and there the baby deer is growing now. Now it's an adolescent deer. It's not big enough to jump over the fence and go out into the wide world yet, but it stays in our area. But it was frolicking in the open area with its mother. I had the deer going. And then the reason why I almost did not call you on time this morning is because just before we were about to go on the air, I peeked out my deck to look at the bird's nest, because I've told you about the bird's nest that's built. What a construction, especially with that piece of cloth that it picked up off the driveway somewhere that the Monroe brothers had left laying around. I saw the bird was in its nest, and so I'm out there, and you know, we're about eye level, right? Me and the bird, because it's in the tree and I'm on my deck. It's about 20 feet away. I said, I bet if I get my binoculars, and if I can focus them down to that close, I can get an up-close look at this bird. And as I was getting the binoculars, the bird flew off. And I'm like, well, drat. But then I said, well, I'll see if I can focus them down anyway. And I get a good shot of that bird's nest, and I see the two little baby birds' beaks peeking right up over the edge and kind of wiggling around, and then you don't see them. And then the mama bird comes back with a mouthful of worms. I'm talking, I don't know, they must have worm radar. How would, in that quick, she was only gone a minute and a half, 2 minutes at the most. How would you go and collect random earthworms that quickly? And they're talented, these birds. She's got 4 at least in her beak, and lands on the nest and starts shoving them down these baby birds' mouths, like, here, eat this, goddammit, eat this, here you go. And they're just gobbling those worms up. And then when she finishes, it looks like she's speaking to them, like, okay, wipe your mouth off, okay, all right. And then she plops right back down on them and sits on them to keep them warm. And and then I realized that my binoculars, by the way, are my dad's binoculars that he got when he was the president of the local chapter of the Audubon Society here, so that he could go out bird watching. So I have come this is probably the nicest morning that I've had in years, where I've come full circle, and I'm now able to tell the outside world, kiss my big fat white ass, because I'm here on the deck watching mama bird feed the baby birds.
Well, it sounds exciting over there at Castle Cornette. And
what would you rather be doing?
Of course, Cornette
Doesn't
Creek.
that just put a smile on your face when you can see deer frolicking in your backyard, or when you can watch mama bird feed worms to the baby birds of beautiful nature? What in the world would put you in a better mood than that?
I may not mind seeing the birds, but I've had enough of the deer. I've had too many stare downs with deer in my backyard. Just recently.
Are you feeling lucky, punk? What are they going to stare down?
Well, they're like out there eating crap.
Who's trying to intimidate who?
They're eating the leaves. They're eating the grass. I come out on the deck. They hear the door open. They all stop what they're doing. Their head goes up and they look at me. Yeah. I'm not going to break. So I stare right back at them and the stare down happens.
I'm not going to break. Why? What do you care if they eat the fucking grass? How much grass do you need?
I didn't say I was stopping them. I said I went on my deck. That's all I have to do. They hear the door and they'll go, it's like someone lives here. Who is that?
Well, they have to make sure that you're not a predatory menace. And you are, but only in the business world. But they have to make sure that you're okay. And then and then they go back to their business. But if you don't threaten them, then you can get a relationship going with you. Probably the reason why they're not nicer to you and they're eating your fucking trees is because they're like, look, here's that prick that keeps staring at us. What the fuck is his problem? We're supposed to be cute. Anyway, this is your show.
That's right.
But I got a couple of shout outs.
Oh, okay.
Just real quick. This is for both of us. You're on these programs as well. From Vanessa from Ontario.
Hi, Vanessa.
Well,
from Ontario.
Yeah. Thank you. Hi there. I just wanted to send this email to let Jim know he has had an impact on my 6-year-old son. He has never shown an interest in any wrestling on TV. He says it bores him. My boyfriend and I are both members of the cult and listen to both podcasts in the car. My son heard one episode and was hooked on Corny. He was 6 years old and he's hooked on the podcast. My God, you may be scarred for life. He now enjoys watching classics with us and asks to listen to the podcast every time he sees Corny's face on Spotify. I was hoping Jim could maybe give him a shout out for his birthday. It's on June 17th. It would really make his day. His name is Jensen. Jensen, happy birthday, June 17th. And I'm sure I'm helping you grow up a lot quicker listening to these programs.
If you really exist, it could be some made-up fan. We don't know where this is coming from.
Oh, for heaven. Now, what do you got to take the piss out of?
Vanessa.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of Vanessas listening to this show.
Her and her boyfriend.
And their 6-year-old.
They're allowed to have sex and procreate, aren't they, our fans? I mean, they're not AEW fans who are legally prohibited from having sex. Anyway, Jensen,
there's a difference between legally prohibited and physically prohibited.
Well, some of these people need to be restrained. Anyway, and also one more, I won't read the email, but to Chris, who is from England, near Newcastle, where I was at a few years ago. He knows that. He just sent me a general email. He's been having a bad time, and the podcasts help him distract him and, entertain him and help him, get through that stuff. So anyway, he's got them on repeat on his headphones. So anyway, Chris, and I know there's umpteen Chris's, but he's near Newcastle. He has them on repeat on his headphones. And he sent me an email recently, and he's been having a bad time. So I wanted to say thank you for what you said about me, and we love you too. Are you going to take the piss out of that one?
No, that sounded lovely.
I'm supposed to be the guy that's just a grumpy, ornery, tinted bastard.
You sound it.
And I'm trying to be happy and talk to fans and spread joy and talk about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and all that stuff. And you're just a goddamn stick in the mud here today. You didn't even call them our friends on the open.
I didn't.
Well, and I hope now that you regret that. Anyway, I've got an update on, this is your show. We know that much. We've established that.
But if there's an update, there's an update.
Well, I promised that I would have an announcement and some information for the folks on the drive-thru this week. So I'll go ahead and disseminate that now in case you decide to take us in all kinds of goofy directions later on. Is that all right?
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, this is an email from Liam. And I can't pronounce his last name, but he knows who he is. But we've been talking about the NFTs that the WWE did, and the NFTs that are all the rage, and the NFTs that I'm about to talk about that I'm going to be doing. And he was kind enough, because everybody knows that I get the concept that it's a one of a kind or a one of a few, a limited number collectible. But if you held a gun to me, because it's on the internet, but a lot of people know how to work these, fucking Max Apples, and they've been to Microsoft's office, so they know where the bathroom is and all that stuff. But anyway, for those people, this was an explanation of NFTs from Liam. An NFT is a digital art piece that someone creates on their computer. When a person sells their digital art piece, that specific NFT has a specific barcode to it that is recognized by the artist, therefore making it a unique and official piece. And also he says, we talked about if you sell one, if you sell an NFT to someone, the technology has it so if you duplicate the original, the barcode would automatically be different, so you can copy it, but everybody can tell it's a fake. It's because it's its own fingerprint. And if you sell the Mona Lisa to somebody and that person sells it to somebody else, you can always trace that because there's only one or whatever. But this way, the barcode is unique, so it's actually trying to copy and sell the Mona Lisa. So anyway, that's the concept of the thing. A lot easier than you tried to explain it to me, Mr. Last, when you were confusing the issue.
Okay. Now explain it back to me without looking at that paper.
All right, I will, Matthew. You take this thing. No.
Let's hear what you got, Seymour.
It's an NFT. It's an original piece of art, and it is registered. It has its own unique barcode, so that when you buy it, you are registered with that thing, and at the same time, if you sell it, if you tried to copy it, it would be a different number, and people would know that it was phony because it's registered with these type of things. See there?
How do I buy it?
Well, I'm fixing to tell you. See, Liam just emailed with the concept of the thing. But I've been talking to somebody. I've known this young man for several years now. He's a fine young man, and he's involved with this project. And it's a company called Rarities, but with a W, just like wrestling. WR, Rarities, WR.
Like Leno named it.
Well, no.
Wrestling Reality?
Well, Leno has never borne any relationship or similarity to reality. But anyway.
He can start selling NFTs, but they'll all be other people's artwork.
They'd probably be the crowns from other people's teeth. Yeah. Hey, you know what? That would be funny if Leno started selling, like, here, this was a crown that I took off of Abdullah the Butcher when I did his dental work on my cable access show. Anyway, you're confusing the issue. I'm proud to announce that we've got some official Jim Cornette NFTs coming out. And these are going to be very limited in quantity, but high in quality. As I mentioned on the program so far, they're going to be in the form of digital trading cards, because the card market is hot, but I love the idea of having my digital trading card there. And there's going to be several different levels, 4 different levels. The bottom level, I shouldn't say that, the level 4, because nothing's the bottom here. These are all top quality products. But the 4th level will be limited to 500, and they'll be sold at the price of $75. I know you're going to blister me and say I make things too cheap, but I want people to be involved in this. This is the level 4, but there's only going to be 500. The level 3 will be a different card yet and be limited to 100. And the top 2 levels will be a bid series. The auction will go for 1 week. They are unique. There's the level 2 signature series, which are 3 different cards in that series, 3 different images, all with my autograph embossed in a wonderful way. And then the top level is the Cornette face, unique and one of a kind. And with those 2 top levels that will be on auction for 1 week, you get with that, a complete Jim Cornette ring-worn outfit, autographed, jacket, shirt, pants, and tie, and a handwritten letter of authenticity along with those items. And with the Cornette face, not only do you get the ring-worn outfit and the handwritten letter of authenticity, but a personalized video message from me, actually from Hotchkiss, congratulating you on getting a one-of-a-kind item that will never be duplicated. And I know what people are saying now. Where and when do we make ourselves available for this? They go on sale Sunday, June 27th at noon Eastern. And the website you will go to is ProWrestlingNFT.com. ProWrestlingNFT.com. They go on sale on, as I mentioned, Sunday, June 27th at 12 noon Eastern. The lower levels, the 3 and 4 levels, limited number, but they will be on sale for one set price until they're all sold out, whenever that may be. The level 1 and 2 will be on auction until Sunday, July the 4th at 5 p.m. Eastern. And the starting, just to give you an idea, the starting bid on level 2, the Signature Series, is $1,000. For heaven's sake, the outfit is worth that, as we've seen by WWE's Most Wanted Treasures here lately. But anyway, ProWrestlingNFT.com, Sunday, June 27th at noon Eastern, and we're going to have some fun with these. I believe they're going to be having them up on the website in advance so you can see, obviously, what they look like, and we're going to talk more about it as we go on, but this is going to be cool. And Brian, you may be able to, I don't know, but as a matter of fact, I'm not going to ask you for help on anything. But one thing people are going to be asking, how do you buy these things? Well, because it's electronic, you need to get one of those wallets. And load it up with the cryptocurrency. And then you can purchase these things. I understand a lot of people know how to do that these days. Well, I'll probably have Liam can send me a tutorial on that, or somebody between now and then, so that we know how to let everybody know. But that's the gist of it. All right, this is your show.
This is my show.
Yeah.
And we have a lot to do here on this week's show. And of course, I think we should probably start with a review, get that out of the way. And I will say, in my opinion, this week's episode of WWE Most Wanted Treasures on A&E was the episode I enjoyed the most.
Yes. And I will tell you all the many reasons as soon as I find my notes. There they are. No. Well, this was a 2-hour episode, and so we got to see not only so much more footage of the guy we wanted to see in action, but also there was more time to have, it was almost, they couldn't do the Andre bio as part of the A&E biography series because they've already done Andre. So this was a chance to revisit Andre, tell some personal stories, like from Jackie and Timmy White, and make it more about the actual guy. They had time to flesh it out, as well as just we're going trying to find, Brutus Beefcake's clippers or whatever. So that was definitely a plus. And it was more of a, Most Wanted Treasures has not exactly had any real heartwarming moments in it up till now. But this, you had a few of the snurflers. So yeah, it was, and plus so much of that footage, not only did they go back in the WWF archives, the WWF archives, but the French talk show footage and the stuff from England has been out there, the black and white stuff, but still just to see it all in one collection there and etc. That was cool. What I gotta say one thing. Has Linda McMahon had renovations done?
I thought the same thing, so I'm going to say yes. The fact that you and I independently both came to the same conclusion.
Because, Linda was always a thin woman, and her face was very thin. She's older now, but she's not fat by any means. I'm not trying to say that. I know the headlines. Cornette says Linda McMahon is fat. No, her face is more full and round now, but at the same time, she seems to have less wrinkles than she did 20 years ago. As she looked because she's, how old is she?
Which is what a year or two younger than Vince?
No, I think it's 3 or 4, maybe. You could probably look that up because I ain't going to. But anyway, she's a 70-something-year-old woman. She looked in her 50s. I know there
72.
Okay, there you go. There's a level of makeup involved there. She might have had more makeup on than Vince, but they're a young-looking couple. They sure are. Anyway, we found out that Andre was, she said this before, this was not a revelation, that Stephanie was considered Andre her best friend, especially when she became Thumbelina, when she walked up on his hand.
I've joked about it on the air. Stephanie always says the same thing. Like, she's done this story before people that aren't wrestling fans when she has to represent WWE as the brand ambassador. It's always, I'm not just Vince McMahon's daughter. Andre the Giant was my best friend. And I always thought, like, this is such a stupid story for her to try to relate to people who are human. And she did it all again. And I'm starting to think maybe I was wrong. Maybe she just had a really sad childhood. And in her mind, like, all these adventures with her and Andre that didn't really happen were happening. She was walking on his hand, and I don't believe any of it. I don't believe any of it.
Well, no, to be fair now, let's just hold on, cowboy. See, I'm trying to be the voice of reason here today. I am not by any means saying that every time that Andre and Stephanie were in the same place together, that Andre was not anything more than kind to her and probably went out of his way to, to fucking be friendly to not only Vince McMahon's daughter, but also just a nice little 6-year-old kid or whatever. But you just have to go back to how often would that have been? It's not like they went to the Garden. It's not like Stephanie, when she was a child or even a young teen, was going on the road with Andre. You see picked like backstage at the Garden. Yes, I can believe Vince brings Stephanie or Shane when they were kids to the Garden or whatever. But it's not like Andre hung out at Vince's house in Stamford. She mentioned he was if he was indeed in the swimming thing they had, Vince had an entire gym in a room in a wing of his house in Stamford, a fully equipped gym. It wasn't like as big as a goddamn, what do they call it? The House of Boom. You can tell I'm reaching for the name of a gym, right? But you had every machine that a gym would have just for one person. It was a sizable room, and in the middle of it was this goddamn like 12 by 12 foot concrete hole in the ground. It was like 6-7 feet deep. And it was I said, what the fuck is that? I asked Bruce one time. He said, well, that was the swim thing that Vince had. What? Well, you fill it up with water and it had jets that would shoot at you and you could actually swim in place because it made the current where even if you were swimming hard, you couldn't go anywhere. But it was big enough to do that in. And this incredible contraption. And then later on, Vince had it filled in because he never used it anymore, right? He wanted to swim. What the fuck? But this is in this guy's house. Anyway, I believe Andre may have been in it once or twice, maybe, but he didn't hang out at Vince's house. Everybody, they said on all these shows, if Andre wasn't on the road, he was home at the ranch at Ellerby.
No, he was eating honeycomb, playing with Stephanie in the backyard. But having a tea party with Stephanie.
So, but I'm just saying that the opportunity, and once again, it's not like that the kids, if Vince brought them, were in the locker room. That was in the days even your family didn't come in. So there was hallway interactions, and as she got older, if she went to some of the shows, but to be honest, how old would he was done with the company in 1990. That's 31 years ago. She would have been a young teen at most. She said she was 14 when they went to the French restaurant.
Yeah, hold on.
Stamford.
I'm looking this up right now because she was born in 76. So that means 1990 she would have
been 14 years old.
Yeah.
I can't say that Andre the Giant never took Vince's daughter to a French restaurant in Stamford. I question that there was not more people there with them and that maybe it wasn't a business thing and she was I don't know, but anyway.
Where did Randy Savage take her?
Hey, but the thing that made this program so special to me, Brian, was the footage. As I was mentioning before, the pictures. They had not only the classic stuff that you've seen and the pictures you've seen from the magazine files, but the personal stuff. They obviously knew what they were going for because they knew where it was and what they'd found, and then they wrote the show around it. Because when you think of Andre memorabilia, the giant machine mask would not be in the top whatever, but they made the story that it was because they knew where not only one but two of them were. It was Giant Machine was Andre, obviously. Super Machine was Bill Eadie, Masked Superstar. But who was the Strong Machine?
Oh, it was a Japanese wrestler. Now I forget the name. Off the top of my head.
I'm trying to remember too. Stump Brian. There you go. But
they had Blackjack Mulligan as one of the machines for a while.
Yeah, Blackjack Mulligan. What was his name? What machine?
Now I have to look up the different machine names.
Yeah, but it was a whole. They started it with Bill Eadie, right? In Japan. Was Super Machine was first, and then New Japan, they started creating different machines, probably because different giant Americans would come over for the different tours, and then they did the thing with Andre, and Vince liked it and brought it over, but it lasted, year and a half, all in with everybody. But anyway, so the Giant Machine mask is valued at $5,000 to $7,500. I love their valuations. And
how much did Jake get for his tuxedo that he wore 4 years ago to the Hall of Fame?
And I say, what was it? I can't remember.
Like $5,000. No, it was like $5,000.
Anyway, they need Cornette's Collectibles representing these people. But anyway, and then the other thing is Andre the Giant's passport. Why would you think of that unless you already knew the story that you were going to be able to tell about it and ended up finding three of them. And they valued that at $5,000. I don't know if they're alive anymore, but a few of the people I knew, Japanese fans back in the day, would have fucking put that down as a down payment probably. Anyway, so Stephanie McMahon, on behalf of her late best friend Andre, sends the entire All Elite Wrestling announce team around the country to find Andre's stuff. Mark Henry and the Big Show. Boy, they didn't plan this one ahead, did they? And I'd forgotten, actually, were you as just gobsmacked as I was that Hogan had the nerve to call the Giant in WCW, and I beat Andre and his son of that no good Giant? I'd forgotten about that until they showed that clip. Even then, at that point, that was 1994, right? People knew that was complete horseshit.
95,
easily verifiable.
Everyone knew he wasn't Andre's son. They pretended to for a while, but the funny moment was when the Giant finally turned and joined the NWO in 96. I think it was the fall of 96. They take over the announce booth in the back of the building, which is a cool visual because you have all the fans behind them. And it's Hall and Nash and Hogan and the Giant. And Scott Hall says on mic right before they go off the air, "Are you really Andre's son?" And the Giant didn't know what to say. He's like, "Oh, I can't believe you did that."
Oh, God. Anyway, so Show lives in Miami now. Maybe he can referee the South Beach strap match they're going to be having. And apparently he's just moved in because he's got a great house, but all his shit was in storage tubs. And he mentioned his maximum weight was 537 pounds. And I'll have you know that when they sent him to OVW, we got him down to 420. We got Mark Henry down. I think at one point he was 389 when he was working in that old building in Jeffersonville with no air conditioning. But basically, he gave him a singlet. That was nice of him. But then they take off to Peoria, Illinois, where the most well-known collector of Andre the Giant memorabilia, Chris Owens, lives. Has Chris Owens ever... I mean, he had a lot of great Andre stuff, but how are they called well-known when we never hear these people's names in the inner wrestling collecting fandom over the years?
Well, I'm not going to say anything to disparage this guy.
No, I'm not trying to disparage
it seemed like he
guy.
was a serious collector and he had his shit together, but I think there's a level of collector that really isn't a part of the collecting community as much as the WWE universe. So the WWE knows who these people are, but the people who collect really rare or old things or hard to get things, it's kind of a different world. Although this guy, the Andre guy, he wasn't like the guy with all the Hasbro toys hanging on his wall. That guy seemed like a real serious collector who knew his stuff. Yeah.
And he had a passport, but he wouldn't part with it. He had Andre's x-rays, and as soon as I wrote, because I'd taken running notes, how the fuck did he get the x-rays? Well, it was from Andre's personal collection, basically Andre's copies of his x-rays, because he couldn't raid a person's medical file at a doctor's office. And did you love not only the 60s black and white film, but the clips from the IWA in Japan in 1970, when he didn't even look at that point like modern Andre facially, because of his features had not grown into what we recognize as Andre today. He looked more like a tall guy.
Yeah, he was tall and lean. And he filled out, obviously, as the years went on. But they used some great footage in this. It was weird in some cases, especially with Japanese or the brief little bit of Mexico footage. But, I mean, there's footage that I and you and probably most people have better versions of than what they used in this, which is a little weird. But it was cool seeing all that footage. And even John Arezzi, who has some of the rarest footage of all, which is incredibly valuable, he has the footage of Andre the Giant's first MSG appearance and his early MSG appearances, and they were able to make a deal and license some of that.
Yeah, March 26, 1973, if I remember correctly. I sound like I'm on Iron Chef right now. If my memory serves me, that was Arezzi's 8mm movies that he had shot at the time, and also the poster that the guy gave him from the MSG appearance. That was done, if I am not mistaken, by Norm Kietzer Pro Wrestling Illustrated or Pro Wrestling Enterprises at that time, right?
I'm not exactly sure. Actually,
was it?
One of the things I came out of watching that special with is the idea I have to look into that poster and see what else I can find about it.
Yeah, because they were doing...
I have ones like that for Bruno from a few years before that, but I don't know if it's made by the same people.
But anyway, that was, those, well, everybody's seen the drawing of Andre. It's a sketch of Andre double bicep standing over New York, that they used in 1974 to promote whenever he was going to come to a different city. Coming soon, Andre the Giant. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, of course.
Well, you say, of course, like everybody might not have seen it. But what they did was they got a bunch of those printed up back then and sent them to all the different wrestling offices when they were first booking him out on his first full tour of North America in 1974. And that was hanging up in the Louisville Gardens. And the poster was actually 7 feet tall, because that's how, so it was supposed to be life size, but it's a drawing. I don't know why they didn't get a picture. It would have been better. But anyway, Teeny gave me a roll of those that I still have. I probably 3 or 4 of them rolled up, that she had left over after the week that he came through. But that was that hung at one time or another in every arena that hosted wrestling in America.
And it appeared in the programs.
Do you remember they glossed over? Vince said that his father, Vince Sr., gave Andre the Giant name, which I'm not disputing.
Right. That happened when Vince Sr. was known as Dick the Bruiser, I believe.
Well, no, because Bruiser, see, here, hold on here now. I may be able to disagree with you. I saw the Indianapolis TV. He was first introduced in the WWA and in Chicago as Monster Rusimov because that's the way they advertised him when he first came to Indianapolis. Now, I don't know between that, but you've heard about Bruiser's story about Jean Ferret, which was Jean Ferret in French means man of iron, right? Is a famous French legend like our Paul Bunyan. But when they told Bruiser Jean Ferret, he said, how the fuck am I going to advertise a guy named John Ferry? What the fuck is that?
Well, even better was the translation, Giant Fairy. He's like, how am I going to...
Giant Fairy. Giant Fairy. Yeah, how am I going to advertise a Giant Fairy? Thank you for saving that for me. Anyway, but they called him Monster Rusimov too, like in Japan during that period of time where they also didn't really mention that he'd been a heel in Japan early on. But anyway, the Arezzi clips, they mentioned, and they had the footage from the talk show where they mentioned, well, he'd been in Montreal for a couple of years, but they had the one shot of him giving the old hangman to Mad Dog. There is still some more of that footage, right, out there somewhere? The Montreal stuff? Do you know from Pat Bertrand?
I'm not sure what is out there. I know there is some stuff, but I was surprised to see 1972 Montreal footage of Mad Dog and Andre. I'd never seen that.
Well, yeah, and it also looked like it was off a master. So there's something there, and I had not seen that either. But anyway, that was a chapter all in its own, and that was a big part of the not only the Andre book, but also Mad Dog Midgets and Screw Jobs. Montreal from 71 to 73, not just because of the Giant Fairy, but the entire business was the hottest city in North America at that point in time, and especially with the promotional war. 2 offices running and doing great business, but Andre with Don Leo Jonathan, with Mad Dog Vachon, with Killer Kowalski, they were doing 18,000 people, some of those indoor shows, and then going to the ballpark. What, Jerry Park? They did, was it 23,000 or 25,000 at the height of the... No, it's 26,000 at the height of the promotional war, wasn't it?
Sounds right.
Sounds right. The Sheik and Jacques Rougeau did a ballpark number. I know that there was another ballpark show with the Vachons figured heavily in a tag, maybe against the Ledukes that did. But anyway, they were doing huge fucking business. And that's where Andre really learned to work as a main event guy. He had never been in front of crowds that size or with top talent like that before. So by the time that Vince Sr. signed him up, that was kind of like his finishing school. Timmy White lives in Orlando now. Oh my God, I thought he'd be the last holdout. He must have sold the Friendly Tap. Timmy White had a bar in, oh God damn it, what was the town? Is in New Hampshire, Rhode Island, somewhere up north. You know my Northeast geography. But it was called the Friendly Tap, and that's what he transitioned to when he quit refereeing. But they didn't explain. They've explained Timmy White being his road manager or his good friend in all of the Andre specials, but I don't know they've ever gone into detail about what all that entailed. But think about this. Timmy was the guy, because he was so nice and he was so responsible and he level-headed, and I really enjoyed working with him, but he was the guy that they trusted with their most valuable asset. Andre the Giant couldn't, if his plane was canceled, can you see Andre walking up to the fucking counter and arguing with the ticket agent? And it would be a big goddamn spectacle. Andre would sit over where he could be, by himself, and Timmy would go make the change. Timmy would get the cars. Timmy would check in the hotels. Just the act. It's not like Andre was a goddamn idiot and couldn't do these things, but just the act of him doing any of those everyday things would cause a fucking spectacle. And Timmy's the guy that made sure that life was as easy as possible as it could be for him to transition from one town to the other, go from one place to the other, and then go out afterwards and have food, drink, 106 beers or whatever the fuck. It wasn't a situation where Andre could always go out with the guys. All the guys had stories about going out with Andre because those were memorable. And even if it happened, just a few times, you would, talk about that. But Andre was out every night somewhere. And a lot of times it was just, Timmy could get him from one place to another without the trip being, the hardest part of his fucking life that day.
Was he I guess because it was Frank Valois and then it was Arnold Skoland. Did he replace Skoland in that role of just handling Andre? Or is it a different role, do you think?
Kind of a combination of the two, in that it was the earlier guys, it was somewhat of the same role, but then it evolved, whereas Frank Valois was the originally put with Andre for kind of the same thing, to get him from town to town, and especially in Montreal when he had moved over and had no idea of, where was where, but also to interpret because his English was not good at that point. And then later on, when he first signed with Vince Sr., Arnold Skoland was not only known as the babyface manager for like Bruno and Backlund later on, whoever the fuck was needed, but also it was kind of like in the Northeastern Territory, in the WWF territory. When Andre was out on the road, I mean, you've got 20 million stories of the office would have to assign somebody. And, guys would say, yeah, I was the one that drove Andre around for 3 days when he came to Alabama or whatever. Skoland wasn't traveling the fucking world with him. So finally, as it evolved, when Andre was exclusively under contract to Vince, but the WWF had gone nationwide, that's when Timmy was the guy that was with him everywhere, all the time. So it was kind of the same role, but more of a friendship evolved, and it was more of a 24/7 thing. Anyway, what about... Did you know that Sonny Ono lives in Mason City, Iowa?
No, the whole Sonny Ono portion of the show was bizarre.
It was filler.
What an interesting little guy. I don't mean that in a disparaging way, but just what an interesting... We had always heard he was Bischoff's buddy, so he got hired by WCW. He was doing some help with the New Japan deal. They made him a manager. You may not be able to tell if you're a younger fan from those clips. One of the worst managers in wrestling history.
Well, to be fair, if somebody just handed you a fucking wrench and said, go be a plumber, would you be good at it? He had never done it before. He never did it afterwards, and nobody apparently ever told him anything while he was doing it.
I don't think I would be a good plumber. However, I think I would be able to convincingly pretend like I knew what I was doing.
You could take the toilet apart some way without fucking hurting yourself, right?
That's right.
No, Sonny Ono, he was a friend of Bischoff's, and Bischoff knew him, and he was bilingual, so Bischoff made him the translator. But I didn't know he was that obsessive of a collector. So apparently maybe that's some way that Bischoff had met him. I don't know. But I just loved the idea that, well, let's think of Sonny Ono first, because Andre wore this in Japan. Andre wore that mask in Japan 10 years before Sonny Ono was ever in the wrestling business. So it's like, yeah, I went to Scotland at one time. But I don't know what the strong connection would be. But anyway, he just happened to have the mask. Imagine that. And then they did the segment where they made him a heel, and he put it up for bids in an online auction, and they got outbid for it. And Mark Henry got pissed and had to walk away.
That was the funniest scene, because you have two fans on their computer on Zoom, and then you have on the couch the Big Show and Mark Henry with this AJ guy, and they're losing in the bidding to fans.
Yes. On behalf of the WWE, they've lost the auction to Joe from fucking Cincinnati. Oh. But at least Show was polite and philosophical about it.
Were you surprised how emotional Mark Henry kept getting about Andre and Andre items?
No, because Mark is an emotional guy, and I think he's getting. I'm not knocking Mark Henry. He's always been an emotional guy. He gets emotional about certain things, a kid or whatever the fuck, and maybe as he, like all of us, as he gets. I was just talking for 5 minutes about my fucking bird feeding a baby bird. So maybe as he gets older, he's getting more emotional. But it wasn't completely out of character. It wasn't like fucking, Ole Anderson breaking into tears because of the fucking, Ole would have been trying to fucking sell pieces. He'd cut it up in pieces and sell pieces of this shit.
By the way, this is how I think everything went down with AEW. They start talking to Big Show, and Big Show said, hey, my best friend is Mark Henry. Let me get him involved in this too. Same thing as this show.
And I had forgotten they showed Mark's debut in the pay-per-view in 96 against Lawler, and I forgot with that hat on, he looked like Rerun from What's Happening. And then he tried on Andre's jacket and cried. And then I have noticed this, and he did it again. So now I think it's another purposeful rewrite of history. Vince said Andre was dying in 1987, and he said, well, you can go drink yourself to death, or you can come and get back in shape and headline WrestleMania 3. Aren't we putting Andre out to pasture a couple of years too early there in this revised timeline, because he wasn't ever going to leave and go drink himself to death before goddamn he had the back surgery? But was Andre ever just not going to come back to wrestling, and Vince had to talk him into it? This is new.
Well, he didn't exactly live the healthiest lifestyle, yet he still managed to stay alive until early 1993, which is 6-7 years after WrestleMania
6 years,
3.
yeah.
So I don't know. But I mean, there was another point. I thought you were going here. At one point, Vince, when he was the talking head, he said, he was talking about what they're doing and how Hogan and Andre are the foundations of what they do. And I think the quote was so-called professional wrestling. So-called professional wrestling.
Yeah. And by the way, Bruno's calling, and he's pissed off that you built a foundation on top of him. And then Triple H kept the story going up that Andre might have double-crossed Hogan at the last minute. We didn't know what he was going to do or whatever. Of all of this, I believe that Andre was fucking with Hogan, and Vince knew it and let him do it. If anything, in Detroit, because the finish was always going to be 1, 2, 3 leg drop 1, 2, 3, and Hogan's over. But I can see Andre probably fucking with Hogan for all he was worth on that particular occasion. They went to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, right? Another guy that I don't know, but he had a ton of ring-worn stuff, and he had the suit from the press conference, right? I was going to go back and look, and I didn't, but did they have a graphic identifying that as the WrestleMania press conference? I thought I saw it out of the corner of my eye.
I missed the graphic, but that was for the Saturday night's main event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a Friday night main event.
That's right. It was just the main event.
The main event, yeah. They glossed completely over the twin Hebner's finish. And so when they show Hogan roll his shoulder up at 2 and the referee count anyway, they just had to say, but the referee didn't see it. He was looking right at it. That was the finish. That's when they came up, they signed Earl Hebner from Crockett and did the twin referee angle. And then Hogan said, what, did he have plastic surgery to look like that referee?
And if you remember that moment, the Hebners will have T-shirts with that moment on it on sale momentarily.
Yes. And that was, because I did watch that, because since it was on NBC and such a big event, wrestling returning to network primetime, blah, blah, blah. And that's when I fucking found out that Earl had defected. And I shit myself watching that. Because obviously that was part of the deal. He couldn't tell anybody. So, because he had been refereeing for Crockett until like the week before. We had just seen him. Anyway, right at that moment, I swear to God, I wrote, "Where is Andre's pink satin jacket from 1976?" Because that is the first picture I ever took of Andre the Giant, and I still have it. He's wearing that jacket. It was in February of 76 in Louisville when he came in. And it was a 6-man tag. Jerry Lawler, Ernie Ladd, and Plowboy Frazier against Tommy Rich, Ron Mikulovic, the football player from Memphis, and Andre the Giant.
Wow.
And so that's the first time I got to see Andre interact with Ernie Ladd. And also got to see Ernie Ladd standing next to Plowboy Frazier, and Ernie had him by an inch because of the afro. Anyway, the jacket, the jacket that he wore at the press conference, the guy that owned that offered it on loan for a warehouse tour. And now then they went to Ellerby, Mark and Big Show with AJ, because they found another machine mask. If you were looking for anything of Andre's that he might have had in his possession at his death, Brian, who would you have talked to first?
I would have either went to Ellerby or talked to his daughter.
There you go. And they know that. So, but anyway, here's something I didn't know. They kept showing Rhonda Orton, friend of Andre's. It's Bob's sister. I had no fucking clue that Rhonda Orton went out with Andre at any point in time. Did you catch that?
I caught it, and I was waiting for them to spell it out a little more, and at the end they talked about how she thinks Andre wanted to take it to the next level and she wasn't ready. I was surprised by that whole thing.
I can see Bob saying, "Hey, why don't you marry Andre? We'll have Andre in the family."
It's the same way Vince said, "Hey, why don't you marry Hunter? We'll have Hunter in the family."
Anyway, so they go to Ellerby and Frenchie Bernard's wife, Jackie. That's, like you said, one of the two people that you would have called if you were the WWF office is either his daughter or Jackie, because when Andre died, he left his estate, the value of it, his monetary things, etc., to his daughter, but she didn't move to Ellerby, so I guess they sold the property or whatever, but I understand he also had made arrangements to give some things to Jackie and Frenchie or whatever. Anyway, but there, when they went to the local museum, there was the pink satin jacket. I fucking flipped over that. And of course, they had another machine mask. And then they agreed to the trade of Andre stuff or on loan for a donation or whatever the fuck. And then they see another passport and Mark gets choked up again. Fuck, Mark cried more in this episode than most of the main characters did on fucking Peyton Place.
I also love the idea that both of these guys left that company because in one way or another they were disrespected. Whether as on-air performers or the way they were used, they felt like Vince had nothing for them and they were disrespected. And here they are getting disappointed at people for not just voluntarily giving things up to WWE.
And now, and Mark has put out since then that he wanted an office job or some type of office position, and they wouldn't give it to him. And it wasn't that he was just cut the promo that was cut on him by Randy Orton, but then I don't know what did he want to be fucking head of marketing, or I don't know what he wanted, so who knows about that one. But anyway, but Jackie didn't want to give that one up out of the museum, but she said, "Well, I got another one at home." Okay. And then they go to the ranch and Jackie gives him the passport, and the home movies of them spreading his ashes, Frenchie off of the horseback onto the ranch. That was heartwarming. I'm glad Mark wasn't on camera at that point, or he'd have cried at that too. But like you said, except for the side trips that they've got to do in these things that are obviously staged, this was the best one yet, and had enough time to not only show us some shit that we hadn't seen in a long time of Andre, but give some more, personal recollections and stories than the normal episodes of these.
And we saw the way real collectors would behave. I'm not just giving this to you. You're out of your mind. I'm not going to take $5,000 for this. No. I don't have any responsibility to give this to you. But you can look at it.
You are indeed a greedy, greedy individual.
Am I wrong? Tell me if I'm wrong. If they came to your house, they approached me. Remember, one of the things they wanted to do was come here for junkyard dog things. The way it was originally put to me, by the way, and I said, no fucking way. It was going to be Triple H and Stephanie coming here looking for items. And I was like, no. We're not playing this because I'm not even going to entertain the idea. I would sell it to you guys who just love bastardizing history and hiding things in your warehouse. But finally, we're seeing collectors who behave the way collectors would. I'm not giving you a gift.
Well, I told you the first thing I said, do I really have to sell anything? I don't know what I want to sell that you'd be interested in. I have a number of things for sale that the fans are interested in, but I don't know if it makes a television show.
Well, you know, Jim, one of the things they said that made Andre fall in love with Ellerby is, of course, the friendly people and the amount of property he was able to get, the privacy, but also he had a great spot to do some barbecuing. And of course, when it comes to barbecuing, why not get going right now with Omaha Steaks?
Boy, I tell you what, it is time. It is almost summer, as you said earlier. Grilling time is here. The weather is perfect. Father's Day is coming up just around the corner. The 4th of July, Arbor Day, whatever. Omaha Steaks is what you need to get out and grill. That's why they've got the Get Out and Grill assortment. We're talking about 20 entrees that Dad or anybody else are guaranteed to love. Ultra juicy burgers, plump chicken breasts, sides, desserts, and the 4 10-ounce butcher's cut New York strips. This package, the Get Out and Grill assortment, has all that and more. The New York strips are aged for 30 days. That's not as bad as me. I've been aging for 60 years. But if you get the Get Out and Grill assortment right now, in addition to the burgers, the chicken breasts, the New York strips, the sides, the desserts, you get 4 free New York strip burgers. And this thing is selling out fast, so don't wait and be shut out on this. Get the meat in your house as quickly as possible. We just had the New York strips the other night. My lips were smacking my brains out. And here's the big news that we have not revealed. Right now, the Get Out and Grill assortment at omahasteaks.com is 59% off. That's more than half off for those of you mathematically challenged individuals out there. 59% off the Get Out and Grill assortment with all that stuff. Go to omahasteaks.com. Check out and see for yourself what is in this package. And when you go to omahasteaks.com, type JCE in the search bar when you order to get the 59% off, and you will thank us. Your lips and tongue and taste buds will thank us profusely. Anyway, omahasteaks.com, type JCE in the search bar for 59% off the Get Out and Grill assortment.
That's right. And I just had Omaha Steaks the other night, and I think I'm going to make another order pretty soon. They have those caramel apple tartlets that are delicious.
And you just stick them right in the oven.
That's
and
right.
They've got the steakhouse fries. They've got and as a matter of fact, the steak seasoning. If you don't get greedy and use all of the seasoning that comes in this package on your steaks there, you can use it on other things also. So it's a whole big production.
Good hot dogs, too. Like big hot dogs. Very
big,
good.
plump hot dogs. Huge, big as Andre's middle finger.
Well, we have a big plump episode of the Drive Thru here. And of course, we just reviewed this big Andre the Giant episode of Most Wanted Treasures. And now we have, I guess, Most Wanted Questions here on the show. Jim, before I get going with my show and my questions, or the questions submitted to me that I will choose to read, is there anything else on your agenda so I can have a nice, easy flow for the rest of the show?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do, Brian, because I've got another email. Since I can work this email gimmick now, I'm getting full use out of this thing. I'm not answering a lot, but I can at least read them. I've got an email for a question for you from one of our listeners, a longtime Cult of Cornette member named Brian Lieberman, who is he and his father helped out with the transport of Stacy's dad's Cadillac LaSalle appear to Louisville, and Brian Lieberman has a question for Brian Last. He has never reached out, he says, to ask a question on the show, but he never needed to ask one, he says, because we get so many, and we usually answer everything he needs to know. But with all the talk of Jake the Snake Roberts in the past, and hearing him come up more and more, with the Dark Side of the Ring coming up, of course, this was before that episode, but it also did not cover this particular thing. Brian says, I need to know the story. What's the story with Brian referring to him as a degenerate piss drinker? I've heard Brian Last blister Jake with this a lot, and I don't doubt Brian, but I don't think you gentlemen have ever gone over exactly what happened. So if you could, please tell us why Jake Roberts is referred to as an inveterate piss drinker.
Okay, first of all, I don't think I've said degenerate piss drinker. I think I've said noted piss drinker. If I had to correct
that is, we are suitably corrected there. Noted piss drinker. Brian added the degenerate.
I'm going to be brief because the video is available. You can go to the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube channel and look for Jerry Gray on Jerry Gray on Jerry Roberts. Jerry Gray on Jake Roberts. The story goes, Jake Roberts, who had been friends with Jerry Gray for many years, was working for Jerry when Jerry's promoting shows, and it was constant problems, one after another. And one night he showed up, and things were really out of control. I believe this was the night that he had the girl he was traveling with perform oral sex on him in front of all the boys in the back, and then he started beating up the locker room and destroying the place. Jerry came back there and confronted him. Everyone left the room except Honky Tonk Man. But the boys were watching from a window in the other room, and apparently what happened was Jake and Jerry started fighting because Jerry, rightfully so, is pissed off. It's his venue. It's his promotion. Jake's going to mess up his relationships. And Jake and him start fighting, and then Jake finally says, in front of Honky Tonk Man, with Bushwhacker Luke looking through the window, because I have him on tape also telling the story, Jake pissed in a bottle and said that he was going to drink the piss to show Jerry how much he respected him, that he in fact respected Jerry more than God. And then Jake chugged a bottle of his own piss, famously, while the Honky Tonk Man sat there and said, no, Jake, don't drink the piss, Jake. Don't drink the piss. And that's the story. And again, you may think, oh, that's one man's story. Jerry told the story. Honky told the story. Bushwhacker Luke told the story, all independent of each other, all the same way. And there are other people who were around that remember what it was like. A lot of people want to believe Jake is a completely different person now. I'm sorry. There are stories about Jake that you can't blame on Grizzly and you can't blame on Honky Tonk Man. It's all about him. It's all about him. There are stories. Go talk to John Arezzi about Jake in Singapore in 1993. About Jake smoking crack on the plane, of Jake pulling down his pants in front of I think it was his daughter, pulling down his pants in front of his daughter.
Now, wait a minute, too many pronouns, pal.
Jake's daughter.
Rezzy's daughter.
I believe the story I heard was Jake was on a jet ski with his daughter, and he pulled down his pants in front of all the boys to make them laugh, while his daughter's right there looking at her naked dad. But whatever. There's lots of stories about Jake. 99.9% of them are true, and usually there's multiple witnesses to whatever the story is. Did I sum it up?
Well, I'm glad we cleared that up for young Brian Lieberman. But there's a difference between a noted piss drinker and a degenerate piss drinker that we have obviously shown there.
There are people who believe it's good for you.
Well, you know, they do that on Naked and Afraid, don't they?
There used to be a guy that was on Howard Stern once. He had I don't know if it was a company or an organization. It was called Urine Good Health. Saying that if you drink urine, it's good for you. And the company was Urine Good Health.
I don't know. Every once in a while, I would, during the pee tests for the WWF, I would go, oh, well, this one's mine and this one's urine. But nevertheless. Anyway, it's your show.
That's what Hulk Hogan said to Howard Finkel, I believe, when he took the piss test. But this is my show, and we have some questions and other hijinks
It's not mine. It's urine.
We're not going to move past this, it appears, but we will do our very best. But Jim, wanted to ask you about something several people have messaged us or sent in questions about this morning, actually. Have you been following the Samoa Joe news?
I have not.
Okay, I have an article here from PW Insider by Mike Johnson. He always does a great job. As of 10:12 this morning, as we are recording. Former WWE, NXT, Ring of Honor, and TNA champion Samoa Joe is back with World Wrestling Entertainment.
Whoa!
After being released this past April by the company.
Reversal.
Joe will be working exclusively for the WWE NXT brand. PW Insider is told that Triple H snatched him back, that's a quote, as soon as possible. One source told PW Insider that the second a decision by others to, quote, let Joe back on the board, end quote, Triple H was not happy and wanted him back in NXT as opposed to being elsewhere outside of WWE's auspices. Triple H was the point person responsible who initially brought Joe to WWE in 2015 for NXT, and at one point had even given him a pretty unique deal where he was able to continue working independent dates, although that later evolved into a more traditional deal. Joe had been seen at the WWE Performance Center at least once in recent weeks. He was not backstage at last night's TakeOver. Joe last wrestled in February 2020 after being pulled from the ring due to concussion issues. Joe was not taking bumps when recently seen at the Performance Center. The belief is that while he could wrestle at some point, that is not the goal here, and Joe will instead focus more on non-wrestling duties, with the tease that there needs to be a change declared by William Regal. I believe this is an on-air angle here.
Mm-hmm.
It may be that Joe ends up in the general manager role, or in the role of that as an enforcer for Regal. So stay tuned. If you were hoping to see Samoa Joe land elsewhere, that's not happening.
Well, that's good news, at least for Joe, I would think. Obviously, if he took the deal, it means he wants it. And who else, honestly, is going to, well, besides our favorite billionaire, and we see how that works out, who else is going to pay Joe as much as the WWE will to do a variety of things?
In NXT.
Exactly, because he's perfect. And even if he's got a concussion issue and can't wrestle now, it doesn't mean, Daniel Bryan showed that he'll never be cleared, and Triple H didn't want him to be cleared and out there available to do shit for other people. Because Joe he's not only valuable as an announcer, he's not only valuable as a wrestler, but also he's worked with a lot of these guys, and Joe doesn't do foolish bullshit, and he's a pretty smart guy, so I would think he would be good to have in the training system just to give some of the... There's so many young guys now that there's a disconnect between the current generation and guys that are 50 or 60, obviously. But Joe has been there recently, and he's like the middle generation, but he's not. A lot of the people in that middle generation you wouldn't want training people or you wouldn't want to listen to, because a lot of them were screwy, but Joe's not. So I think that's a great move. And does that say that they fired him without fucking letting Triple H know first?
That's what that
says to me.
That's what that sounds like.
And then he was like, what? You did what? So, and that's what everybody else's reaction was. You did what? So, anyway, good for Samoa Joe and good for Triple H. See, I'm saying good things about everybody.
But is it good for Samoa Joe? I mean, I understand your distaste for AEW, and you know how I feel. But if they were going to give him a lot of money to work less dates and do either a lighter schedule for him to work as a wrestler or make him a commentator, because everyone else is a commentator now, but he's actually proven to be all right at it. If AEW gave him a lot of money to do that, as opposed to going back to a company that just fired him, and apparently they're doing such a good job of communicating, if we're going to go based on the assumption you and I both landed at, Triple H didn't even know. I don't know. Why would I want to go back there?
Okay, well, think about this. Number one, if he's signed to the WWE, but they won't let him wrestle, that means medically he shouldn't be wrestling for AEW. Yes, he could be an announcer for AEW, like, as you said, everybody else in the world. But if the WWE is going to pay him and is going to give him a job working in their developmental system. And especially if Triple H himself was like, they fucking what? Let you go? Fuck that. And brought you back. Now nobody else in the company is going to try to fire him again unless they pass it by Triple H, I bet. And he's going to get paid to do something while he's hurt, while he can't wrestle, that he can make a career out of for the potentially the next 15 to 20 years or whatever the fuck, as long as he wants to, which is working within their developmental system. Not as a wrestler, but as either a trainer or an announcer or an enforcer or a general manager or whatever, and learn and work more on the television side. He's already been announcing he's going to learn some TV skills. What is he going to do, even for more money in AEW, that will give him proper training and seniority and tenure in a position that he can take advantage of for the next 10 or 15 years or more if he wants to and all goes right? He ain't going to learn shit over there. He would be taking money for a while, but he wouldn't be advancing himself in something that he can do after wrestling.
I don't know. I mean, it is interesting how many guys, I'm going to assume him going back may be one of those things, I don't want to work with Vince anymore. If you want to keep me in NXT, like, isn't that Tommaso Ciampa's deal? Like, he didn't want to ever be brought up. Just leave me in NXT, leave me alone.
I think so. Well, but I can understand also he's got a similar situation in that he's had so many major injuries. He doesn't want to go to the main roster. And at that time, it was going to be working a more demanding schedule for longevity for himself, is the way I understood it. Then pandemic happened and everybody's schedule got cut down. But yeah, and also his style is perfect for NXT, and he knows that it would get botched up on the main roster. And we keep saying the main roster. We like that. There's hardly any difference now in the ratings of the three shows to begin with. At this point, it's all between 600,000 and 2 million. So main roster, fuck, I think they're all equally important.
Well, Jim, let's stay on the topic of some of the wrestlers that recently left WWE. This next question sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Meghausen in North Carolina. Hi, Jim and Brian. Huge fan of the podcast and of nuts.com. The chocolate-covered hazelnuts are amazing. My question for Jim, what do you think of WWE not allowing newly released talent to sign autographs using their name used while in the company?
What?
Has any similar edict ever been handed down? Thanks so much. And a edict, at least reportedly, recently came down that if you are let go from WWE, they will, I guess, have a problem, maybe come after you if you sign an autograph with the name that WWE owns.
That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And we need to get clarification from Stephen P. New on if that is indeed something that could, how can you prevent somebody from writing a name of a character that they played in a fucking movie? Huh?
I don't know. So, it's interesting. I mean, you know, we've seen on posters.
I mean, Boris Karloff couldn't write Frankenstein on a picture?
I've never seen a Boris Karloff Frankenstein autograph, so I don't know. But we know that when wrestlers leave, if you advertise them on a poster, you'll see FKA, formerly known as Enzo Amore or whatever. We never think about the idea that if you're signing an action figure or an 8x10 and that photo is of you as that character, is there any sort of legal issue for you to sign that name, although you have no legal rights to that character? I'm not saying I agree with WWE here, but it's an interesting argument.
Well, but that's just being petty because, yes, there's a big market for memorabilia and autographs and etc. But unless the company is saying, well, we'll sell your stuff for you and give you money for it, if you're going out and as part of making your own living after you've worked for that company, you sign a picture of the person you used to be, and they say you can't do that, fuck you. Try to stop me. See, I knew you'd get me in a bad mood sooner or later. So Randy Savage had the rights to his own name because he'd done it beforehand. But that's just ludicrous. That is just ridiculous.
Yet you could see WWE doing it.
And small and petty and greedy.
As I said.
Okay, but wait. Let's think about who is a person who played a famous person that they might be asked to sign that autograph?
Outside of wrestling?
Outside of wrestling. What is a good analogy there? Is there a...
Eric
I guess
Estrada.
They don't want... Oh, what?
I don't know why. I just thought of Chips. What was the name of the character Eric Estrada played on Chips?
I don't have any idea.
I don't remember either.
Ponch and Judy.
Ponch.
Yeah, Ponch, and the other one was Judy.
All right, maybe we need a better example.
What a...
Captain Kangaroo.
Well, there you go. Oh, Bob Keeshan. He wouldn't sign Bob Keeshan to a picture of Captain Kangaroo for a cute little 5-year-old toe-headed boy. He would sign Captain Kangaroo. And can you imagine what kind of furor there would have been if he wasn't allowed by CBS Television Network to sign the name Captain Kangaroo on that little child's picture?
If WWE claims it's their intellectual property, I mean, could Calvert DeForest sign Larry Bud Melman after he left NBC? Because he wasn't able to call himself that anymore, but could he sign it?
I would hope so.
In exchange for money. I mean, it's a complicated issue.
But the thing is, the company ain't going to make the money off those people anyway because they ain't working for them anymore because they fired them. So why do they not want them to make any money ever again?
Because WWE doesn't want anyone to make any money in the world of wrestling unless it's them.
Well, okay, then everybody should start signing in small letters, FKA, and then sign your autograph. Let's see them do something about that. Let's get Stephen P. New on this.
That's right, and we'll talk a little bit more about Mr. New in a moment. But Jim, on the topic of talent that recently left, let me ask you this question sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Eric in Nashville. I wanted to get Jim's opinion on Braun Strowman allegedly charging $20,000 for indie bookings. I was strolling through the internet and came across this.
I was strolling through the internet one day.
It's hard for me to see any indie promotion having the funds or willingness to pay for this, especially since no indie promotion can or will draw $20,000 at the gate. That's the question about Braun's purported asking fee for indie bookings.
Well, but now but not to wrestle, obviously. He didn't want to wrestle. If he's charging $20,000, he doesn't want to wrestle because he knows nobody's going to pay him $20,000 to wrestle besides the WWE, nor should they.
And once again, you can't call him Braun Strowman.
Well, but here's the thing. Up until now, I would have said, well, he's wanting $20,000 for an autograph session because there may potentially, I'm not going to do the math in my head because I don't give a shit about Braun Strowman, but you could potentially make money on that given the circumstances. I used to book guys all the time, and when I was in the office in Stamford in the 90s, Austin and the guys of that level who would do autograph signings at these big sports memorabilia stores, these big malls in the Northeast, and they'd get $20,000 or whatever. It was a personal appearance. It wasn't wrestling. The caller there is right. Nobody is going to or can, it doesn't make any sense for anybody to pay him $20,000 to wrestle. And that's why I say he doesn't want to wrestle. He wants to be a star. But if he couldn't, theoretically, if they're going to come after him for signing the name Braun Strowman in an autograph session, then he's pretty well worth 15 cents in Chinese money because nobody could make any money off of him unless it's a merchandise and autograph deal. So he's going to be sitting home for a while. But anyway, there a lot of people when they hear they're asking such and such for a booking, well, I'm sure if some wrestling promoter, called up his agent or whoever, they would quote them the same price if he even wants to wrestle at all. But other bookings can also be fan fest, comic cons, merchandise deals, the private or the online signings or whatever. And I assume he wants at least that to do anything. So
And right now's the time to get it. I mean, things are just starting up again.
He ain't going to get it long.
Yeah.
Because his nostalgia factor will wear off greatly and quickly. So if I wanted him to wrestle, I'd wait about a year and then sniff around and see what he's taking.
Well, Jim, some of these wrestlers, like a Samoa Joe or a Braun Strowman, or formerly known as Braun Strowman, may be upset still about the way they were treated by WWE. They may see some of these guys like Samoa Joe go back. They may see other guys show up in AEW and say, hey, why not me? I'm in such a weird predicament right now. I hate Vince McMahon. I want to sue.
Well, if that's the case, I'd say good luck to him, because I don't think that the man that I'm thinking about would even bother with taking the case of a whiny little baby like Braun Strowman, because this man that I'm referring to, he fights for the little guy. He gets justice for the downtrodden. He is a man who will wade through the shark-infested waters of the American legal jurisprudence system, and he'll, like a lifeguard, like Pamela Anderson in a red Speedo, will deliver you safely to the beach of compensation, none other than this man.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Those are the rest.
Yes, folks, Stephen P. New at newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084, can deliver you to the beach of compensation, just like he just did for the folks of the 56, I believe, folks that he was representing that were sexually assaulted by a doctor at the Veterans Administration Hospital over there. It was a $10 million judgment that Stephen P. New got for these folks, and it would have been even more if it had been left up to the jurors and to the court process. But the state has a cap on malpractice suits of that nature, and Stephen is also trying to have the whole situation reviewed to see if he can do even better for those folks. And if you go to his website, you will see the many varieties of cases. We've talked about them here on the show. The sexual assault at the Veterans Administration, the incredible judgments that are about to come down concerning the defective earplugs that were given to our service members by the 3M Corporation, poisoning towns' water supplies, cancerous causing agents in major companies' products. Stephen does all that stuff. If you've got a problem, or anybody in your social circle or family has a problem, Stephen P. New is the man for you. That's why we always say, get even with Stephen. 888-692-8084. And you don't even have to pay for the call.
All right, Jim. Well, on the topic of lawyers, our next question, sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Doc in Davenport. I've heard the term locker room lawyer used, and it's hilarious. Every profession seems to have them. Any stories or names of some of the best legal minds in the business? The most infamous Clarence Darrow from your many tours of duty would be great, especially Smoky Mountain Wrestling and OVW. Thanks.
Well, I would like to say that it was grandiose as that. I don't know, maybe somebody else, somebody that was in promoting for 30 years or whatever, may have a different viewpoint of this, but I don't think there were... A lot of guys didn't get to be famous as locker room lawyers because that shit generally got shut down as quick as possible. But the idea, the concept of a locker room lawyer is basically there's always a guy in the locker room that when deals are coming out or somebody's deal's getting changed, or even before the days of contracts, just over payoffs or bookings, or we shouldn't have to do this or do that, the bookers and promoters would refer to them as locker room lawyers, because they always not only saw the bad side of whatever deal was being presented, but also always had demands of their own, or it ought to be this way, or it should be that way, or whatever. And this was years long before actual lawyers got involved in wrestling, when there were actual contracts and things. So I don't know if I know one specific guy that had a shingle hung out, or a PhD, or a diploma from a major university in locker room lawyering. It just seems like there was always one around, and especially in WCW in the 90s or in the WWF when it was hot, it seemed like everybody at one point had taken some kind of lawyering course, because they had and some of those guys are generally the ones that if you just dangle a push in front of them or some big spot or whatever, they would have signed their firstborn children away. But it wasn't them that was getting offered whatever was being offered. It was somebody else. That's why they were generally against it.
So let's get some names.
I mean, I can't think of anybody offhand that I'm going to brand publicly in front of. But Buddy Landell wasn't a locker room lawyer. Buddy Landell needed a locker room lawyer. No, there's a difference between being a locker room lawyer and just bitching about stuff or fucking up in general. No, this was more of the guy that would get in your ear and give you a whole bunch of ideas to take back about the deal that you were making that would get shot down or get heat on you. And then you'd go back and say, well, they fucking yelled at me. Well, you should have said it different.
Austin Idol.
Next question. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding the heartthrob.
Oh, darling.
You know, I would have liked to have heard Idol when all the other guys in Memphis were doing records, Handsome Jimmy and Lawler. What if they'd had Idol do Oh, Darling? Oh, darling, if you leave me, I'll never find anybody like you.
What if they had him sing Jackson?
Oh, I'm coming to Jackson. I'm going to mess around.
All right. This went nowhere. Let's move on.
This went absolutely. It came back around to where we started, didn't it?
Our next question, sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from William Forand. Hi, Jim. TheSportster.com recently released a list of 5 things that Jim Cornette is right about modern wrestling and 5 things he is wrong about.
Huh.
Do you care to comment on the list?
Sure.
Have you seen the list?
I have not.
You're not following the
I've been watching the deer and the birds. I'm trying to follow as little of this shit as possible.
Well, here's the article. 5 things Jim Cornette gets right about modern wrestling and 5 things he's wrong about. Jim Cornette.
And what are these people's qualifications?
I'm not sure.
Is this a long-running newsstand publication of some repute? Is it available nationally?
It's just website of some sort, and I'm looking at some of the articles in the side column.
You sound like Lasthausen now. It's a website of some sort.
I'm looking at the side column here, some of the other articles, including the 10 most embarrassing moments of Braun Strowman's career, 10 wrestlers you'll love if The Undertaker's your all-time favorite, and of course, every Jon Moxley pay-per-view match in AEW ranked from worst to best. But back to this column.
This sounds like a magazine cover of Confidential from the 50s where Jane Mansfield's tits were falling out.
Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see where your tits fall during this, but this was written by Ian Goodwillie. If that is indeed his real name.
I'm sorry, written by who?
Ian Goodwillie.
I remember, and his partner Peter Willie.
Here's the article. Few figures in the modern era of pro wrestling are more polarizing than Jim Cornette. Love him or hate him, the man is not afraid to express his opinions, many of which rub people the wrong way.
No.
It's become increasingly impossible to tell if he actually believes what he says or if he's saying incendiary things for the attention. For better or worse, when Jim Cornette speaks, people listen and respond, often with as much vitriol as him. And while his detractors would never admit this, even a broken clock is right twice a day. And Cornette is, at the very least, a broken clock. So, Mr. Broken Clock.
Thank you, Mr. Tallywhacker. For at least, I'm at least as good as a broken clock.
You're at least right twice a day. That's the minimum of what you have going for you. Well, number 10, you're wrong about constantly slamming hardcore wrestling.
Oh, I am.
This is something that Cornette has been getting wrong about pro wrestling for a long time. He has been openly and sometimes virulently, been critical of hardcore wrestling and wrestlers for many years, though his hate for the style has only increased as time has gone by.
And the style has increased to new levels of stupidity.
While hardcore wrestling isn't for everyone, it still has a strong fan base and a lot of people enjoy it.
Oh, good Lord. Apparently so does bestiality in fucking Germany from some videos I've seen. Does that mean we're going to say it's fucking popular?
Cornette, on the other hand, has essentially stated that the style is for wrestlers who can't wrestle and need to hide behind weapons. Yeah. It's a pretty broad statement that does not reflect the truth of the situation at all.
Oh, well, I'm glad to know that. I'm suitably chastened now. What evidence do they present to support their hypothesis?
Unfortunately, no evidence is presented to show why they came to these determinations.
Oh, okay. I have a feeling that's going to be a recurring theme.
Well, one thing you're right about, the disappearance of rest holds. Because we've all heard you talk at length about the disappearance of rest holds.
What the Have you ever heard me use the word rest hold?
No, and for those of you who don't know who are younger fans, that was not a wrestling industry term. That's not like kayfabe, not one of the words that wrestlers were using.
No, rest hold was come up with in the early days of the insider sheets, newsletters, bulletins by the fans to actually describe when guys would grab a hold in a wrestling match. That's when they're taking, well, no shit, they're taking a breath, but you're not supposed to accentuate that. And actually, it is in some cases a correct application of a term, the way some guys would grab holds, because they'd be blown up and they would just be sitting there motionless. But when you grab a hold in a wrestling match and you are an actual professional, you need to do a little fucking work while you're in there. But that's never been a term used in a locker room, never been a wrestling term, never been used any way inside the business. It was used by the marks, the fans of 30 years ago, and now I think some of the guys probably use it now because they grew up reading this shit, but it's not a real term, and I've never used it. And what I bemoan is the fact that, imagine this, in a wrestling match, nobody uses any wrestling holds. If you're playing tennis at Wimbledon and nobody ever misses the ball, you don't get any applause, and it gets old. It's the same thing in wrestling. If you never stop doing shit, the people finally just go, fuck, you're wearing them out instead of making them excited. Holds in the middle of action and movement add to the drama of the match and convey the effect of a struggle and a contest, especially if you do them right. If you sell the one you're in and you work the one you've got. Rest hold. This guy's a fucking amateur anyway. What's his name? Toad Willie?
It was Willie
Tallywhacker 3. Okay.
Well, here's his description. There are a lot of components needed to put a good wrestling match together, but one that often gets overlooked these days are rest holds. Wrestling expends a lot of energy, and the longer a match goes, the worse the fatigue gets. Rest holds were used to slow the match down and give wrestlers a chance to take a bit of a break. While rest holds aren't completely gone from modern wrestling, Cornette is right in that this should be more prominent. It helps the wrestlers execute a better match and might actually help them be safer in the ring by giving them a chance to breathe and think.
Well, there you go. Even Mr. Tallywhacker knows that we ought to have holds in a wrestling match.
Jim Cornette's wrong about his high spot hate. The American wrestling scene has been dominated by big, muscular men for most of its existence, particularly WWE, and those types of wrestlers are definitely important. But modern wrestling fans have shown they want to see smaller guys doing bigger moves off the top rope and to the outside of the ring as well. Cornette is not a fan of high spots. He seems to be fine with the occasional high spot, but wrestlers whose game is entirely...
Once a match or show. Once a match, let's do one tackle, drop down, hip toss, drop kick, arm drag, get it again. And then that's it.
He seems to be fine with the occasional high spot, but wrestlers whose game is entirely based on them drive him nuts. It's safe to say that he's out of touch with wrestling fans on this one. Number 7, Jim, you're right about turning arena lights down during matches.
Well, wait a minute. Let's go back to the high spots. I managed the fucking Midnight Express. Our biggest rivalry was against the Rock and Roll Express. Those were high spot tag teams doing high spots in matches, but they were doing high spots in matches, not high spots instead of matches. And their shit didn't look as phony as a football bat. And they didn't look like a bunch of small children when they did it. There's nothing wrong with high spots. That's why they call them a high spot. A high spot is a spot in a match, a part of a match, a moment or a time period in a match where you've got the people up because you're doing something exciting. By actual legitimate definition, that means that it needs to be broken up by other parts of the match that lead to that high spot and then settled, etc., etc. If you have a match that is nothing but high spots, then you don't have any high spots because that's the normal fucking pace. Capiche?
But again, going to the confusion with the words, he didn't understand the origin or how to apply rest holds.
He doesn't know what any of these words mean anyway, right. So this is a fucking Mark article on a stupid website, but go ahead.
But they probably think high spots may mean just stuff off the top rope, or they may not understand what spots are versus high spots. And you know what I mean? Like, you're talking about these things. I doubt any of that thought went into this.
No, I doubt any thought went into this.
But Jim, you are right about turning arena lights down during matches. Some of the changes in the wrestling business over the years have been much more subtle of others. Well, that's written poorly. One such change are the house lights at wrestling shows, particularly on televised wrestling events. There's a lot of production that goes into any and all wrestling matches, but the practice used to be to turn the house lights down during the bout. As TV has become more important to the industry, that has faded away as companies want viewers to see the reactions of live fans. That does take some focus away from the action in the ring.
Oh, good God. They don't even want people to see the reactions. They just want people to see the people. Look, building's full. Well, we can see that in the entrances. Yeah, I always like to go to the movies when they don't turn the lights down when the show starts.
One thing you're wrong about, smaller wrestlers. Cornette's dislike of smaller wrestlers is not limited to what he perceives as their overuse of high spots, though that is a big part of it. His heyday of wrestling was during an era where the business was about big guys slamming each other around the ring. While this might be an oversimplification of his point, Cornette's opinion seems to be that smaller wrestlers are much more limited in the ring. In particular, someone like Marco Stunt doesn't have the same range of moves that Brian Cage has. But that doesn't mean that Stunt can't wrestle or that he can't put a good match together.
Yes, it does mean that he can't and he shouldn't. And it should be a crime punishable by imprisonment for anybody who will allow him to. Oh, my God. We could put him against Masquerita Sagrada. That's okay. Here's the point. Again, everybody says, well, Cornette just wants 300-pound guys, body slamming each other. No. Want men that look like grown adults fighting. I don't want a child. I don't want a genetic defect like Marco Stunt. I don't want a fucking 5'2" fucking fishy white midget fighting a grown adult man on an even basis. It's phony and stupid and nobody gives a shit. And the reason why that these basically trained chimpanzees are allowed to go through these male cheerleading routines at a 140-pound body weight is because there is a small niche audience that wants to watch guys fucking tumble around and pretend to fight. But most people don't. That's why most people don't watch wrestling anymore. So it's not the size of the fight and the dog, it's whether they look like they ought to be in the fight to begin with. And they say Pac weighs 188 pounds. I'd book him in a heartbeat because he looks like a fucking man. And that's the same size as one of the fucking young bucks, and they look like a fucking fifth grader. Either somebody's lying or it's distributed a different way. but it's not about the size. It's about the visual and the appearance, and not everybody can fucking play.
And once again, reminder, because he said you were around during this era of just bigger guys. The Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express were the smaller guys coming into Mid-South Wrestling.
Yes. Oh my God, Robert Gibson was the tallest one of the bunch of us, 6'2", and that was kind of normal. But if you were 220, 230 pounds, you were smaller at that time. I didn't say you have to be 300 pounds, but goddamn, once you get a supposedly grown man that doesn't weigh 180 pounds and put him in a fucking wrestling ring, unless it's Tiger Mask or Rey Mysterio or a couple of other people I'm sure that somebody will remind me of, in general states, you're fucked. Because nobody wants to see that shit. And the more flipping they do doesn't help, because the more flipping that these idiots do, the faker it looks, which is the whole problem to begin with. So they try to compensate for looking like they shouldn't be in the ring with the guy they're fighting by doing more phony-looking shit.
One thing you're right about, backstage employees who don't know the business. When a wrestler's time in active competition comes to an end, they often end up taking backstage roles with the company. This could be as a trainer, a producer, a booker, or another office job of some kind. But in recent years, wrestling companies, particularly WWE, have been bringing people in to fill those roles from outside the business. Wrestling is a very specific industry, so having someone in a key role who doesn't get it can be a big problem. Cornette isn't wrong on this topic.
Well, and this is a revolutionary concept. If you hire somebody to do a job, they should have experience in and knowledge of what you're hiring them to do. I know this blows everybody's mind. And here's the thing, they still have not made civilians producers in terms of the wrestling producers. There's a variety of producers. There's technical producers, an audio producer, this producer, and that producer in the television side. But as far as what they used to call agents and now are producers, those are still ex-wrestlers, because I just being honest, if you got somebody that had never been in, especially the people that they get that have never been involved in wrestling, because they try not to hire wrestling fans. They specifically don't want wrestling fans, or at least they used to. You're not going to be able to find somebody that's going to be able to talk to a fucking wrestler, or the wrestler wouldn't be able to talk to them. They wouldn't even understand the words they were using, even today, much less 30 years ago. So the agents, the wrestling producers, still have to be ex-wrestlers, but they are conveying the information, I hate this word, the script, that writers have written that have never been involved in wrestling until they took a job with the biggest promotion on the planet. They hire writers that don't know shit from apple butter about anything as relates to the inner workings of the wrestling business, how matches are put together, angles, finishes, history, the whole 9 yards. And they have them write the shit, and then they give it to the poor ex-wrestlers as producers to tell the current wrestlers what to do. And I knew that was fucked up 20 years ago. And I'm saying anybody that's actually in the wrestling business seriously is insulted by that. But that's just me.
One thing you're wrong about, Jim, modern wrestling gear. When it comes to crafting a popular in-ring talent, the look of a wrestler is as important as their wrestling. The last 10 to 15 years have seen the rise of a larger variety and styles of ring gear for performers across the board. Some wrestlers have gone extremely casual, which works well with their gimmick. As expected, Cornette has a problem with this. It doesn't fit with the old days of wrestling, when most people wore standard trunks or tights. This shouldn't be an issue, as gear needs to fit the wrestler, and that's all that matters.
Yes, gear needs to fit the wrestler. And gear is not either a sloppy pair of tennis shoes and an old pair of blue jeans, or a fucking t-shirt with a goddamn hole in it, or a fucking stain from your fucking last cheeseburger, because you look like a bum. You don't look like somebody that people would pay to see. You don't look like a celebrity. Or you can go the other way. Instead of extremely casual, extremely fucking silly, and have the fucking, multi-layers of tassels and jacket tails and boots on backwards or whatever. Remember the guy last week on AEW? His boots laced up the back of his legs. It looked like he was wearing fucking boots from the Ringling Brothers Clown College. No, I never said, guys, I don't critique the individual gear in terms of, well, here's what I think they should. I'm not a designer. I'm not saying what they should be wearing. I'm saying what they look like at that point. And when Miro comes out in a pink Minnie Mouse t-shirt, or some other idiot comes out there looking like Delta lost his luggage and he's wrestling like he walked in off the street, hey, that worked for the Hells Angels, the chain gang. They rode the motorcycles up, got off with the fucking motorcycle gang outfits on, went and wrestled, got back on the motorcycles and left. That looked like something. A lot of these guys look like they just wandered in because the fucking airline lost their bag. So I'm not critiquing their gear except if it looks stupid or they don't have any. Fuck. Extremely casual, and it works for them. You pay to see a lot of garbage men, right, Brian? You see a guy running down the street on a back of a garbage truck, wearing old jeans, some oily gloves, and a dirty shirt. I'd like to pay to see him somewhere.
Well, Jim, one thing you're right about are wrestlers not selling offense. Every move pulled off in a wrestling ring requires two people to make it work. The person on offense is the one executing the move, of course, but the individual who's on defense has to sell the impact of that move to make sure it looks convincing. Both sides need to be firing on all cylinders for everything to succeed. On more than one occasion, Cornette has pointed out that modern wrestlers don't always sell as well as they need to. He's not wrong, and it does harm the story being told in the ring to an extent.
Well, imagine that. You know what? Somebody said something about the deal that they all do now, where they'll just get the shit knocked out of them, one of them, and it'll knock them back into the ropes, and they'll come off the ropes and level the guy, and then they'll all sell. When's the last time you saw in a boxing match? As they say, it's because it's adrenaline. It was adrenaline that took over. That's why the guy didn't sell it, and he hit the other guy, and then they went down. When's the last time you saw in a boxing match adrenaline save somebody from getting knocked out? I bet their adrenaline's running pretty good when they're on national pay-per-view in a fucking World Heavyweight Championship boxing match, but when the guy gets knocked out, he still goes down. Fucking idiots. It's phony. The less you sell of anybody's moves, the more you put in people's minds that those things don't hurt, then the more that people have to do to get a reaction from those people, then the more danger you put yourself in, and the more you hurt your body, and on and on. And when the business got populated by marks in the 90s who watched ECW and thought, oh, that's fun to hit each other with garbage can lids, and everything was deregulated, the territories were gone, and any fucking jack-legged idiot could get in the business, that's when they started doing a bunch of moves to each other. And it's fun. And wow, we can do this. And then they popped up from everything because they had to get to the next spot. And slowly the fans figured out that this shit doesn't really hurt as bad if they do it right as we thought it did. We exposed our own business and we look like idiots because we're the ones that end up in fucking wheelchairs. Well, not me, because I was smart enough not to expose my fucking business. I took a lot of bumps, but they all looked like they hurt because many of them did. But that's all that happens when you don't sell shit. Especially if the shit happened to look the same way as it does when other people sell it. Then you go, oh, fuck, that knocked out Joe, but Ben popped right back up. I don't understand. Then you devalue your finishing moves. You devalue your high-impact moves. And the problem is that nobody ever set these fucking guys down. Well, I did in OVW and in Ring of Honor and in every place I was, but it wasn't enough. And said, hey, Einstein, nobody out there knows what a full scoop slam feels like in a wrestling ring or a vertical suplex or a backdrop or whatever. They've never experienced it in an actual ring from an actual wrestler. The only thing they got to go on is what we show them. So if we show them it hurts, and everybody's together on that, it hurts whenever somebody gets slammed or backdropped or whatever, then they believe it hurts. But if they see, especially when they see some fucking moron that weighs 175 pounds and has a body built to work at Jiffy Lube, take the same bump and jump right back up, ah, shit, they fooled us. I will close with this. We were doing the scaffold matches in Louisiana. And somehow they forgot they had to put something up there that they didn't put up or whatever. And when the fucking guy got the ladder, one of the fucking building janitors, he climbs the ladder and he tinkers or tightens the thing or whatever. And then he's up there reaching it, and he just jumps off the goddamn ladder and lands on his feet in the ring and walks off. He took the fucking bump, landed on his feet and walked off. Probably got fired shortly afterwards. I remember there was some I think it was in Monroe, Louisiana. I can't remember. But anyway, it's an expose. You're an idiot. You're doing something for a living that is going to damage your body. How much you don't know, and you try to control it. You may end up in a wheelchair. You may just end up with a lot of arthritis and cold weather. But you're going to fucking make that worse and cause yourself to have to do more to get the same result just because you are so stupid you think that a bunch of moves strung together is what interests people about professional wrestling. That means you're just a fucking idiot.
Well, Jim, we're almost done with this list. Number 2. Another thing you're wrong about, comedy in wrestling matches. Comedy is harder than drama. Making someone honestly and deeply laugh is incredibly difficult, and it takes a lot of skill to make it happen.
Yes.
Which is why we never see it on wrestling.
I was about to say that's why most wrestlers ought to stay far away from it. Just like most comedians shouldn't fucking wrestle. Andy Kaufman was an exception.
Regardless of that, Cornette seems to believe that comedy does not belong in a wrestling ring. It's kind of odd considering he's been part of more than a few comedy spots over the years. Keep in mind that this is about wrestling matches, not promos or skits. He's not a fan of guys like Orange Cassidy, who have built lighthearted characters, despite the fact that fans love him, and the man is incredibly talented between the ropes.
Oh, good God. The man's incredibly talented between the ropes, and he's so thin he can slip right in between, too. They just said it. Comedy is incredibly difficult. And the problem is they don't understand what comedy is acceptable in wrestling. They just want to go and ass off and play grab and tickle in front of paying customers and mock what they're doing. No, Orange Cassidy has not crafted a lighthearted character. Orange Cassidy's a piece of shit-looking guy that was trained to do a bunch of wrestling moves but couldn't draw any money because he looks like the guy that delivers papers. So he comes up with some phony shit that will tickle the small number of people who watch this comedy wrestling parody product, and they convince a billionaire that he should be on national television. I was the funniest guy in wrestling, whether it was making fucking shots at people on promos or doing shit in the ring. But the comedy was not making fun of wrestling. The comedy was not making fun of the fact that it's all fake and we were all working together. I've said this before on promos. It's the simplest and easiest to understand example. As a fucking heel manager, if I do my job and I convince people that I'm the prick that I want to convince them that I am, then I can tell a funny joke, and it's like a fucking fat joke about your wife. It's funny to everybody else except the guy whose wife is fat. It's not funny to him. When I knocked the Rock and Roll Express, It might be funny to some of those guys that didn't necessarily like the rock and roll because all their girls did, but it wouldn't be funny to the general public who loved the Rock and Roll Express. In the ring, there are obviously places for comedy. In spots, even in main event matches, something funny organically can happen without the guys losing track of that they're in a contest. They're supposed to be fighting each other and they're not working together. And in manager matches, that was where the comedy was supposed to come in a main event, big blow off angle, whatever. No, it's still supposed to be serious, except for the reaction of the manager as he knows he's about to get fucking killed. But the comedy comes from humiliating or embarrassing the heel. That's why people laugh. The heel gets heat by doing something serious to the babyface that they like. And the babyface can get even in one of two ways. Either beat the shit out of the guy, beat him bloody, beat him flat in the middle, take his belt, run him out of town. Or if you're not ready to fucking trash that heel just yet, you can fucking let the babyface embarrass him and humiliate him. It gives the fucking babyface the last word, but it makes the heel still live to fight another day. We still haven't seen him, his blood. We still haven't seen him put in the hospital, but boy, we saw him embarrassed. The way you work the comedy, and if you're talented enough to do it without showing people that you're obviously cooperating, that you're making fun of your profession, and that you're doing phony shit simply for the purpose of entertaining them. That's the difference. Are we clear on that?
I believe so. I don't know about Mr. Tallywhacker, but we'll see what other people think. But number one on the list, things you're right about, Jim, using scripted promos. It seems like an eternity since WWE let their superstars go out in the ring and cut their own promos. Standard practice is normally to completely organize what they're going to say and do before they go out there, word for word. Jim Cornette is incredibly against scripted promos, and he could not be more right about this. Unscripted promos used to be a huge part of establishing a gimmick and connecting with the audience, and a lot of wrestlers simply cannot deliver a scripted promo without sounding wooden and forced.
And scripted.
And scripted.
And this is not, again, you know, as to quote Gorilla Monsoon, Mr. Tallywhacker has a firm grasp of the obvious here. Everybody can tell the difference between promos of the guys in the old days. And there were shitty promos too. We've all seen them, especially with some of the middle or underneath baby faces in the territory days. Didn't get to speak a lot, and for good reasons. And they were rotten when you see them. And every once in a while, one of the heels would get discombobulated and his tongue would lop over his eye teeth and he couldn't see what he was saying, as Mama Cornette used to say all the time. But everything sounded, if a guy was any good at all, everything sounded like it was coming from just them. Something they would say and in the way they would say it. The way that you looked at them, the visual and the verbiage and the manner of dress, that's the thing about guys' gimmicks in the territory days versus today. Because there were exceptions. Jerry Jarrett and Lawler invented Kamala, blah, blah, blah. But most of the time when you saw guys that weren't just, you know, a complete gimmick like Kamala, they had come up with it. That was what they wanted to do. They were traveling the territories trying to work on this presentation that they were, you know, showing people. And they would add and subtract until they got it the way they wanted it. And their promos, you would tell them what to talk about. Brian, you're wrestling Jim Cornette at the Garden next Tuesday. Give me a minute and a half. Sell me some tickets.
All right, you four-eyed fuck. I'm going to come...
I didn't mean really do it. I'm just saying that for example. That's a for instance.
I apologize.
That's all right. Your apologies accepted. But anyway, and that's why it would sound natural coming from that guy, because he was making up the way that he was saying it. And also, everybody didn't sound the same because you didn't have the same group of people writing down verbiage that different guys were memorizing. So everybody was using the same kind of words. I never wrote Well, I've said this before. I never wrote a promo out that I ever did ever, except for those Cornette's commentaries on Raw that I needed to clear by Jerry McDevitt so we didn't get sued for slander or anything. That was a special case. But in OVW especially, and a lot of times in Ring of Honor, I was dealing with guys who hadn't had a ton of experience talking on television. Sometimes in OVW, sometimes any, and Ring of Honor, maybe still sometimes any experience. So when we were booking or, producing the television, especially in OVW, because I was shorthanded, I was laying everything out. When we would get there, I would have the referees bring each segment of the television show into the finish room, one at a time in order, and I would go through everything with them verbally. Their matches, their finishes, their interviews, whatever they were going to be doing, we would go over it verbally as far as what we wanted to see happen from start to finish, how long it needed to take, what cues were going to be, and then we would open it up to discussion. Is everybody good? Anybody got any ideas? Want to change anything? Whatever. Boom, boom, boom. And then I had already written up, if they were going to do especially a long live promo, I had already written out the story that I told them verbally that I wanted them to tell. And I would hand them that piece of paper and I would say to them, here's the story that I just told you. Put this in your own words. I just don't have time to come back and remind you of every single point 2 or 3 more times because I got to do this for everybody else and then we got to tape the show. So this is everything I just told you. Instead of you having to make notes, I've already done it for you. But put it in your own words because I don't want it to sound like me. And that's the way that, and then the guys were able to, okay, I'm reading this over again. He mentioned this is an important point. We got to say when the match is going to take place or whatever. But otherwise, I can tell this story the way I want to tell it. And some guys like the John Cenas would just instantly go off and give you gold. And there were other times guys would sometimes try to memorize what I gave them and say that word for word. And it wouldn't come out very well. And I'd tell them afterwards, don't memorize, get the gist of the story. I'd always tell also in wrestling school promo class, this is an important thing to remember. If you've ever seen a stand-up comedian or anybody on television, anybody from fucking Richard Pryor to Eddie Murphy to goddamn Jackie Mason, there's one for the fucking older fans. The joke, the build-up may change. It may be longer, it may be shorter, it may have different characters. But the punchline's always the same because that's what makes it funny, right? So a good comedian can tell the same joke and take 3 minutes or 30 seconds. It just depends on how much buildup he wants to give it. The buildup can change. The punchline has got to be the same. So that's a promo. As long as you get the information out that you need to get out and you make your point, it doesn't matter how you say it. It just needs to sound like you.
That was the list, the 10 things you're right and wrong about, 5 each.
I have number 11.
What's number 11?
Jim Cornette is right. Mr. Tallywhacker's a mark and doesn't know anything about the wrestling business.
Well, after hearing that list, some wrestling fans may feel like they need someone to talk to. Things aren't the way they used to be.
Boy, I tell you what, that's right, but I don't even know if our friends at BetterHelp can help the wrestling industry, but they can help you out. If there's something interfering with your happiness, preventing you from achieving your goals, or you just need an unbiased ear to bounce something off of, the folks at BetterHelp can help you. You can start communicating in under 48 hours. They assess your needs and match you with a licensed professional therapist. There's a broad range of expertise available. You don't have to do anything in person. No waiting rooms, especially if you don't have access to these services in person at all where you live. They'll set you up with an account. You can log in anytime, send messages to the counselor, schedule weekly video or phone sessions. Everybody, we've had so many emails where people have said that it's made a difference, so hopefully it will for you as well. Anyway, if you visit their website, BetterHelp, that's better, H-E-L-P, betterhelp.com, you can read some of the testimonials that they post from some of the over 1 million people that have been taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. And if you go to betterhelp.com/drive, DRIVE, you'll get 10% off your first month's services. That's just for the drive-through listeners because they love us and we love you. Anyway, betterhelp.com/drive, 10% off your first month's services.
That's right, Jim. Well, let's get some more questions here on the air. This next one, sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Gerard. Can Jim shed any light on Hulk Hogan leaving the AWA for the WWF? I watched the AWA documentary on the WWE Network, and Hogan explained about feeling aggrieved about Vern not putting the title on him because Vern demanded bigger cuts from Hogan's gimmicks and international bookings, plus some unnamed costs. If he did, and taking the money... All right, it's a little confusing here. Basically, he's saying the Hogan story is that Vern wanted gimmick money and Japan money. Is this true? And is there another side to the story that Jim knows? What was the overall effect of Hogan leaving the AWA for WWF?
Good Lord. Well, last question first. The overall effect was not good for the AWA. That was one of the hottest periods that they had in years and years, and probably the hottest period for business in Minneapolis and St. Paul specifically. 82 to 83. And I mean, a lot of it was Hogan, but Hogan got hot, but then everything got hot. So it wasn't a death blow immediately when Hogan left. And then Vince started poaching because Hogan wanted to take David Schultz to work with. He wanted to take Mean Gene because they had such great chemistry as an announcer. But still, a lot of Vern's guys, Vern had a pretty good, 84, 85, and then 86 started the downhill slide. But
once he lost the Road Warriors, because he had Hogan and then he got the Road Warriors, but then once he lost them, there was no one to replace it.
Yeah, the Road Warriors were, and still even in 82, 83, even Crusher was still over. Remember, as he defied all logic and reason with those people because he was the Steve Austin of Milwaukee. So, but anyway, we weren't in the room with Hogan and Vern. I believe that Vern probably wanted a cut of anything he could have got a cut of.
And Japan was an issue because Vern had a relationship with Giant Baba.
Yeah.
And Hogan, through Vince McMahon Sr., had been getting booked with New Japan since, 81? 80?
Well, it was the same thing that Vince Sr. had the problem with Bruno because Bruno was loyal to Giant Baba. They had been friends when Baba came over here in 61, 62, when they first used him on top in the States and then took him back to be one of the guys in Japan, the big stars. They knew each other from then, and Bruno, whenever he went, even though Vince Sr. had the booking deal with Inoki, they even ran the Madison Square Garden series sometimes in the 80s in New Japan. Bruno always went for Baba. He was always loyal. And it was kind of a modern day thing where Hogan already had the in, but Vern, in the same way, Baba always used the Americans that weren't affiliated with Vince, no matter who they were, AWA, NWA, whatever. And Inoki always used specifically the WWF guys and then guys from England, Mexico, Germany, etc. So that's why their in-ring styles were so different between New Japan and All Japan. Anyway, the scuttlebutt at the time was that Hogan was mad because, not mad, but, he saw the writing on the wall. They never were going to give him the belt. Vern, in those days, I've heard, still believed that, Hogan's a great attraction, but he can't fucking wrestle. And truthfully and honestly, I don't know whether Hogan needed the belt. As over as he was in the AWA, but I'm sure there were other financial problems between him and Vern. I never met Vern, and obviously never worked for him, but everybody I've ever talked to that did had a story about having a financial problem with Vern. But the biggest thing was Vince had seen Hogan in Japan. You can probably recount the chain of events better than I can, but Vince had the idea to go national. Vince had obviously seen fucking Hogan. Vince had that in his mind. He had to, and Vince goes to Japan and makes a deal with fucking Hogan while he's on tour over there. And when Hogan comes back to America, he doesn't ever come back to the AWA. That's basically the overview, right?
That's a large part of it. You got to remember, Hogan was mad, and I don't doubt him on this. He says he came back from Japan and Verne was selling Hulkamania stuff behind his back without giving him a cut. This was the Wild West in terms of wrestling merchandise. I believe that.
Yeah.
I do believe that. But Vince wanted to buy the AWA. It was the largest landmass in terms of a territory. They had Hogan, who was the biggest star coming out of Rocky III in America and Japan. They had a lot of big stars. They had a lot of territory, a lot of big TV stations. They were on the West Coast. Vince was just going to the West Coast. He wanted to buy Verne out. Verne and Greg laughed him off. He did the next best thing. He got his biggest baby face. He got the biggest television personality, Gene Okerlund, who's on the show locally. Got David Schultz. He was trying to get Jerry Blackwell. Jerry Blackwell decided not to go with them, but he was supposed to be on that first taping. And for the next several years, Vince just, one by one, it wasn't just the Hogans or the Jesse Venturas. It wasn't just the big stars. Anyone, a commentator, a random commentator, anyone who Verne hired, Vince found a way to get.
Almost like it was somewhat personal. As Boyd Pierce said one time, he was just a commentator. Anyway, so that's basically it. There's, I'm sure everybody on all sides of that issue had some complaint or other, and probably most everything that was mentioned in that email, but that's just the biggest deal. Vince wanted Hogan, he wanted to go national, and he made when he saw that, did Vince go on very many Japanese tours in those days, or did he just happen to be in Japan when he knew that Hogan would be over there 5,000 miles away from Verne?
Senior or junior? Because Senior did go over to Japan.
Vince Senior did go over for the MSG tournament events where they do the opening ceremonies with the flowers and the girls in the ring and everything. But I don't think Vince Senior stayed for the month-long tour, did he?
No one stayed for the whole tour, but Vince Jr., I think, started going over there. I don't know if he went over in 83, but certainly by 84. I mean, he's at Hogan's wedding. They even had one of those photos in the Andre special, because it's Andre and Hogan with Vince. Inoki's there, Adonis. I've seen the photos. I have them. But Vince was at his wedding. Think about that. That was like, I think, November. So Vince and Inoki are there, no Verne. But here's the guy in Japan who's paying Hogan all that money, and here's the guy in New York who he already knows. It wasn't like he didn't have this relationship with the McMahons already. He already knew Vince Sr., didn't know Vince Jr. as well, but it all fit together perfectly. The timing was amazing.
I wonder if Verne was invited to the wedding and didn't come, or if he was snubbed.
It's a good question.
Maybe we can get Greg to tell us. He's a fountain of information.
See, Greg says some interesting things, and unfortunately, because no one heard them forever, a lot of people doubt them, but they're interesting. I kind of want some of them to be true, but I don't know if they are. Like the story that Verne was upset about Hogan jumping because he was going to give him the belt. And the plan was in early 84 for Hogan to get a run with the belt and feud with Andre. It sounds great. I don't know how true it is. That's the issue.
Yeah, well, wait a minute. It's one thing to give a guy the belt when he's already working in your territory, but how was he going to get Andre in 1984? Vince locked the doors on Andre.
Well, they were still booking Andre into late 83. Remember, Andre was booked on all those big shows at the end of 83 with Hogan for the AWA. So Andre was working the AWA territory semi-regularly, like he worked everywhere else, but that big group photo of the whole team, you know the one I'm talking about, the 83 group AWA photo.
Oh, yeah.
Andre's in there with Otto Vons and everyone else.
Who knows? Well, there you go. I wish there was minutes taken of these meetings, contemporaneous notes, as they say in the news business, of all these meetings.
I like how many bullshit sheiks popped up. Like, Iron Sheik I get. All of a sudden, Fred Blassie's Ayatollah Blassie. Yeah. Hercules Hernandez all of a sudden becomes a sheik. Ken Patera and Jerry Blackwell become sheiks. So many random sheiks.
Because of the evil influence of Sheik Adnan El Casey.
Of course.
He was kind of almost really a sheik, but I'll have you know I tried to keep Hercules Hernandez from defecting to Sheikdom when he was my bodyguard, but once I sold him to Skandor Akbar, there was no turning back.
That's right. It's all your fault. But, Jim, a lot of things are your fault. Let's get to our next segment here.
The next segment is entitled Things That Are Jim Cornette's Fault.
We don't have enough time for that one.
Hey!
We could try that for one of the omnibus collections, I think. But, Jim, it is time for Brian's Corner, where we do whatever Brian wants for a few minutes while we try to find some questions. It, surprisingly, was very popular last week on the show. So once again, we're going to do the Guess the Program game. Are you prepared this week?
Yes, I am. Oh, great one.
Well, I'm not. So let me just grab these off the pile here. Here we go. I got some. We'll start with this one. Let me open it up. I'm going to give you the card. You will guess the town and the year. I also want you to guess.
Well, now, wait a minute. Instead of the town, can we go with the territory? Because it could be, you know, sometimes the territories had the same card, like Memphis and Louisville would have the same card, but I would know the territory rather than, especially you'll stick in fucking Oshkosh, Wisconsin on me.
You can name the territory, bonus points if you get the town. Plus, okay. I also want you to name which match do you think was the one I said, that's it, Jim will get it, just based off this match.
Okay. All right.
We will start with the opening match. Mr. X versus Rick McGraw. Followed by Johnny Ringo versus Dean Ho. Scott Irwin versus Joe LeDuc. The Stomper, managed by James J. Dillon, versus Ricky Steamboat. Killer Tim Brooks and Bill Howard versus Pork Chop Cash and Tom Jones. And finally, and this is probably the giveaway, the main event, Dick Slater versus Mr. Wrestling 2.
I'm going with the Georgia territory in 1979.
Columbus, Georgia, October 6, 1976.
Damn shit. God damn it. I should have gone earlier.
The one I thought would cause you to get it was either the Stomper versus Steamboat or the Pork Chop Cash match. I thought you would either remember when Steamboat was there, or you may know enough about where Pork Chop Cash was at various points in his history.
Well, and I now in hindsight, I went, because I was trying to date, and I realize I fucked it up. I was trying to date when JJ had this run with the Stomper in Georgia, and that was not correct. But anyway, so I had the territory, I missed the year.
Okay, here's our next one. Let's see if you can get this. Opening bout, Johnny Brown versus Earl Rasmussen. The second match, Danny O'Rourke versus Doug Dawkins.
Good Lord.
The third match, now you will know these wrestlers, Pedro Godoy versus Ray Urbano, who, of course,
the original Great Kabuki.
The original Kabuki. And the main event for the tag titles, Tosh Togo and Tony Gardenia versus Sam Steamboat Jr. and Billy Varga.
What the fuck? Oh my God. That would early 60s. Billy Varga would indicate that it was out on the West Coast, but who is Sam Steamboat?
I didn't say early 60s. I never said early 60s.
I'm just saying that's my guess. I would think Pedro Godoy, Billy Varga, Tosh Togo, but who is Sam Steamboat Jr.? I am stumped here on is this an outlaw promotion?
No, and actually the giveaway isn't Sam Steamboat Jr. It's from October 5th, 1956, the Civic Auditorium, Honolulu.
Honolulu, but
he started there. He was Sam Steamboat Jr. He didn't lose the junior until he came to the mainland.
That's right, because he took the name from a famous surfer or somebody that was known already as Sam Steamboat?
Yeah.
So that was Sam Steamboat, but that was when he started and was Sam Steamboat Jr. All right. And Billy Varga makes sense because Hawaii is the other side of the West Coast, and so does then Tosh Togo and etc. You prick.
This next one is extraordinary. If you get this one, I'll be impressed. Opening bout, Bobby Garcia versus Paul Harrison. The second event, Pancho Pico versus The Beast. A tag team match, Arion Lambrakis, later known as Spiros Arion,
Okay.
and Andreas Lambrakis versus The Mummy from somewhere in South America, and Gordo Chihuahua, the Golden Stomach Squasher. Semi-final event, Cowboy Ron Reed versus Ken Lucas, 2 out of 3 falls.
We're in Arizona.
And the main event, the Mad Mongol, Clawhold Expert versus Louis Tollette, French Villain, 2 out of 3 falls.
As I said, we are in Arizona. I'm going to put the year as 1964.
Let me commend you on getting the year. October 6, 1964, El Paso.
Ah, drat. All right. Well, El Paso isn't far from the state of Arizona. So that would have been, had the Guerreros weren't running El Paso at that point. Gory Guerrero was still active. Was he a promoter yet?
Based on the look of this program, I think this may be from Leo Garibaldi, but I have to double check. Because there was a certain look to the Garibaldi programs in Texas.
Yeah. And I'm thinking that those guys, because Ron Reed worked the Arizona territory, and so did Ken Lucas, back in the days of, Chris Colt and those guys and et cetera. So they may have been trading talent.
And actually, if Louis Tollette's on the show, it may not be Leo Garibaldi booking. But, Jim, this next one, this is a tough one.
That one wasn't?
The opening bout, Bob Becker versus Charles Green. The second bout, Bill Hansen versus Ray Vilmer. The third bout, now this one I'm not exactly sure about. We'll talk about it. Sam Menaker, although it's spelled Manacher.
That's actually the correct spelling.
Sam Menaker versus Hi Lee. Now it doesn't say Sky High Lee. It just says Hi Lee, 290 Houston.
That's still him.
The fourth bout, Ray O'Donnell versus Dr. Ed Mieske. And the main event, George Becker versus Gorgeous George.
We are in a smaller town in the Northeast in the either late 1940s or early 1950s.
I believe this is Buffalo, November 19th, 1948.
There you go. And I'm not a smaller town in relation. It wasn't New York. It wasn't the Philly Spectrum, whatever the case. So, yes, I claim victory.
Okay, this next one, we have a couple more. The opening bout from Louisville, Kentucky, Stu Gibson versus Rito Romero. Do you remember Stu Gibson?
No, he was actually, John Cosper has done some research on him, but he was actually before my time, but he was the tag team partner of Frank Scroy, who later became the Kentucky Athletic Commissioner. Stu Gibson, along with Black Panther Jim Mitchell, were the famous Louisville exports in those days.
Well, that was one of the two preliminary bouts. The other one, Ray Gunkel versus Johnny Valentine.
Wow.
Suji Sito versus Angelo Poffo. Duke Kiamuka versus Danny McShane. And the main event, Edmund Francis versus Gorgeous George. Of course, that being the future Gentleman Ed Francis, Hawaii promoter.
Yeah, and that's some international names. There's not a lot of clues that would indicate one part of the country because all those guys were stars at one point. Well, not all of them, but most of them. Give me the two matches on top again.
Danny McShane versus Duke Kiamuka and Gorgeous George versus Edmund Francis.
I think we're in Texas.
We are in Fort Worth, Texas.
Boom goes the dynamite.
Now, year.
I think we are in... Give me the preliminaries again.
The preliminaries, Ray Gunkel versus Johnny Valentine, and Stu Gibson versus Rito Romero.
1958.
1954, June 21st,
Shit.
1954.
God damn it. I was going to go earlier, but then I say, you know what? Fuck it. But there it was.
Now, here's one you'll never get. If you do, I'd be shocked.
I'm going to try my hardest then, just to make you...
We only know 2 of the matches, because there are 3 other big star bouts, but for the World's Heavyweight Championship, Rita Cortez versus Doris Dorsey, and the main event, Gigi Rogers, Bruno Sammartino, and the Masked Stomper versus Hobo Brazil, Harry Hamilton, and Lou Kez.
I'm going to say Chicago or Boston, 1963.
Akron, Ohio, November 7th, 1964.
And that is, of course, a production from our friend, the great Jack Pfeffer.
That is indeed correct. And finally, Jim, since you really reacted well to this last week, I got another of my Nashville Wrestling News newspapers here. Now, this one, I'm telling you where it is, but listen to this card that promoter Nick Goulis is bringing everyone. The opening match, Cheeto Gonzalez versus Prince Omar. The second match for the Southern Junior Heavyweight Championship. Now, of course, that's the future Southern Heavyweight Championship.
Right.
East Coast Junior Heavyweight Champion goes after the Southern Junior Heavyweight Champion, Tor Yamato versus Paul Carpentier. Now, I'm looking at this picture. This is not Edouard Carpentier.
No, it was his cousin.
And finally, the main event, a wild 6-man Australian Grood tag battle. They meant grudge, but they left out a G. Winner take all, Jackie and Don Fargo and Ali Bay versus Mike Clancy, Herb Welch, and Ray Stevens.
1957.
This is, hold on, November 5th, 1957.
Boom! Wait a minute. Hold on here.
We got the applause. Yeah. Well, there it is, our Guess the Program game. And, you know, Jim, I want to keep these programs the same way a lot of people want to keep their hair.
Brian, I'll tell you how you can keep more of the hair on your head than nature would intend, and that's with our friends at Keeps. Because we've talked about this, we even read 1 or 2 of the testimonials from some of our listeners and said that not only did they keep the hair that they had, but they did grow some of the hair back. Of course, if you're bald as a billiard ball, this is not your solution. They do not imply that they can reverse advanced baldness, but the folks at Keeps can prevent hair loss and get you some of what you've just recently started losing back, which, of course, every little bit helps in a situation like this. If you go to keeps.com/JCE, you can actually get a good deal because you can get your first month of treatment for free. They offer virtual doctor consultations. You don't have to go anywhere. Medications delivered straight to your door every 3 months, so you don't have to leave your house. And the treatment start at just $10 a month. They offer generic versions of some of the hair loss medications that you've heard about. They don't broadcast this. It's not advertised. Hey, sucker, here's your bald shit. No, it's discreet packaging, and they've got more 5-star reviews than any of the competitors. And as the name implies, the sooner you start using Keeps, the more hair you're going to keep. So, if you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to Keeps, Keeps, Keeps.com/JCE, and you'll get your first month of treatment for free. Keeps.com/JCE, your first month's treatment for free. And Brian, I'll admit, I don't have as much hair as I used to, but you're a younger man, but have you seen any of yours migrating lately?
No, that's one of those things. I have all my hair. Some of it's getting gray, but I haven't lost any.
You know, that's the thing. It's in your genes. Somebody told that to me. Said, whether you're bald or not is in your genes. I said, that's not where I've got the problem. I got hair in my genes. But anyway, folks, keeps.com will help you keeps what you got.
All right, well, let's see what we got in terms of questions.
Hey, I've got something to bring up. I know this is your show.
Oh, yeah.
But this is something I want to get listener input on. This was a very interesting question, and I don't know how to answer it today. But it's from Pee-wee. He lives over in Pee-wee Valley. I've told you about that place. Hey, Jim and Brian, he even included you. I want to start out by saying I love both shows and all that y'all do, but I want to ask you a what-if question. If Paul Heyman had approached you, Jim, to do an ECW versus SMW angle, would you have done it? And if so, what are some of the matches you would have booked? Maybe this has already been asked and I missed it. I was just curious. Actually, that's never been asked. And I don't know how to answer it now, simply because if we're going to do completely fantasy situations with any degree of credibility, I don't know what his roster was between 1992 and 1995. So if anybody out there is interested in a potential combined ECW versus Smoky Mountain Wrestling fantasy card or whatever, somebody send me his list of talent, not the list of talent from 96, 97, 98, and 99, but the list of talent from 92 versus 95, so that we see who coexisted in each company and both companies and what we could do. And see, there'd be duplication. Dory and Terry Funk worked both places. Of a number of names at that period of time. Taz worked for me. Nobody remembers it. But I don't know if he started. When did Taz start in ECW?
He started with you first because you said 92. Truly,
well, yeah, he
wasn't there until the end of 93 as a booker, at least.
ECW, let's go 93 through 95 then. Because Taz worked a couple of shows for me in 93, but he was the Tazmaniac. He wasn't even Taz. So we can't, and I don't know if he started with Paul E. before I was finished. That's why I'm saying somebody.
No, I don't think he did.
If you have the information, give us the feedback, and let's see who was in each promotion at the same time and see what we can come up with. And actually, to answer the main part of the question, because now we're just talking about doing fantasy cards, but no, I wouldn't. He wouldn't have asked, and I wouldn't have done it. For a simple reason is we'd have been fucking idiots, either one of us, to offer that or to try that, because nobody knew who the ECW guys were in Knoxville. Nobody knew who most of the Smoky Mountain guys. I mean, everybody knew the Rock and Roll Express. A lot of people forget at the time I had more of the national names than he did. More of my guys had been on national television with WCW or WWF, but nobody knew what was going on in Philly with Smoky Mountain Wrestling except for the real smart hardcore fans, many of whom made trips down to see Smoky Mountain Wrestling in person at Fan Week. But it would have been, the trance alone would have been ridiculous unless we're going to have my guys driving to Philly and his guys driving down to fucking Knoxville. That just because it seems like it would be not necessarily a dream match, but something, a promotional rivalry. At the time, it wouldn't have made business sense for either one of us or anybody on our roster. As I said, the people in Philadelphia didn't know what the fuck was going on with Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and it wasn't the style that they were watching. And in Knoxville, you went to Knoxville, a couple of shows at the Coliseum. How many people in that building, besides the ones that came with you from Fan Week, even knew that ECW existed, you think, at that point?
Oh, not many, if anyone. I think the people there, they only knew Smoky Mountain, WCW, WWF, and probably that's it.
And they knew that Continental had left them a few years before.
That was several years earlier, yeah.
So it would have been, if we'd have said on Smoky Mountain Television, ECW is coming, everybody, all our fans would have, who? What? And as I said, it would have been stupid business for either one of us to do that. And it's not even a knock on the talent. It's just nobody.
It's not even, I don't know. It's not even getting to the point that you wouldn't have been able to do it because you wouldn't have been able to work with Paul. At that point in Paul's life, Paul was into being tricky and shady.
Oh, yeah.
And working his hours, and you couldn't get a straight answer. So if you're trying to work with him and do a interpromotional feud, it's hard when you can't deal with the guy. I'm not saying he would have been hard to deal with. He just would have been Paul.
He would have been hard to deal with because it would have been just an aggravation to try to deal with him. And like I booked my shows 4 weeks in advance. He didn't know his lineup until he got to the building. It would have been a complete. There's no way we would have gotten video from him in a timely fashion to do our television. And meanwhile, I mean, honestly and truthfully, I remember the reaction of my locker room. Chad Austin, kid used to work ECW, and he came down.
I know Chad.
I'm pretty sure it was him that was down in Tennessee and showed the pictures to us of the deal where Sandman and Dreamer did the caning thing. And they took the pictures of Dreamer's back, and it looked like hamburger meat. And, you know, we in the business knew ECW was running in Philly and some of the stuff they were doing. It just, you know, I don't mean that. It just that our fans didn't know or care because they weren't on TV in our area. But I remember Dirty White Boy and all the guys in the locker room laughing, blowing snot, like, what the fuck's the matter with these guys? They're really beating the shit out of each other. None of the guys that I had in Smoky Mountain Wrestling would have wanted to work with almost any of those guys at that time because of what they were doing and the fact that they thought that most of those guys were fucking marks for doing it. And come to find out they were right. They all ended up on fucking pain pills, and Paul owed them hundreds of thousands of dollars. But so there would have been a style clash. There would have been grumbling on everybody's part, probably. The ECW guys wouldn't have wanted to sell for my guys unless they really bashed them over the head with chairs. And my guys would have come to me screaming that they didn't want to really hit people with shit because why the fuck would you do that?
Did you?
It would have been a chaos.
Did you know Todd Gordon at all? Because I know he was involved with Joel Goodhart before he started ECW.
I had heard his name. I don't know, to be quite honest, that we've ever been in the same building to this day.
Oh no, you have. I was there, so I know.
Okay,
yeah.
were we talking to each other and I just don't remember it, or we were just in the same place?
When Dennis did the NWA 50th anniversary show, there was a wrestling card, and at that time, Dennis was doing a feud between him and Todd Gordon and the ECW originals who were no longer working for ECW, like the Pitbulls and Public Enemy, different people. And Todd was at the convention that day. And then that night...
That's right. That's right. He was at the convention, and that's when Dennis wanted me to help him with his finishes and his show lineup, right?
That's exactly right, yeah. And then Todd left.
Well, because here's the thing. Dennis said to me, we're going to have this 10, wasn't it some kind of 10-person cage match, and Missy Hyatt was involved in it?
Well, Missy ended up replacing Todd as the leader of the ECW team because, you know, she was trying to seduce Doug in the ring, the joint. It was, you know, they had to come up with something at the last minute because Todd walked out.
Well, yeah, but basically, Dennis had said, yeah, this thing's going to suck. And I said, well, why? And he said, the match is going to suck. Plus, I've got to pay Todd Gordon X amount of dollars. Plus, I said I'd do this and I have to do that and blah, blah, blah. And he just ran this whole thing down. I said, Dennis, why are you doing this? He said, well, I thought it'd be a good idea. I said, but it's apparently not. Don't do it. And then Todd Gordon wasn't he insisting that his team had to go over so they could bring it back to something else
at another show? That sounds right. This was the last show. This was the end of it, right?
Yeah.
Here.
I said, Dennis, you're sitting here telling me that you're paying this guy too much money. You don't want to do what he wants to do. Nobody's particularly fucking interested to begin with, and you say it's going to suck. It's your show. Don't do it. So he didn't. He told Todd Gordon, I'm not doing all this shit. And Todd turned around and walked out. And nobody gave a fuck, and nobody asked for any refunds. But yeah, so I guess I was in that one. Maybe that's why I haven't talked to Todd Gordon at any more length.
And to your earlier point, this could be a fun topic to discuss the pros and cons or the realities of you and ECW doing something. But on that topic, Jim, let me ask this next question sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Eli in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. How was the Philadelphia area as a territory in the 70s and 80s? Were there any signs that it would go in the direction it did under ECW?
Oh, boy. Well, the Philadelphia area wasn't a territory in the 70s and 80s. It was part of, at first, the WWF territory, what came to be known as the WWF, and one of their biggest towns. I would what would you think? And we don't have exact business records for the 60s. There was a period of time where Vince Sr. was out of Madison Square Garden in the mid-60s, 66 to 68, or not out of the Garden necessarily, but they were off television. In New York, is what I'm trying to say.
He lost the Garden in the early 60s because Pfeffer got it back briefly somehow.
That's right, just for 6 months or whatever. Yeah. But no, what I'm saying is, so the Garden wasn't drawing. They weren't doing big business in the Garden because they didn't have TV. So at that time, would Philadelphia have potentially been the big town in the Northeast territory at that time? Because that was before they got Buffalo.
You put Philly in front of Boston?
Well, that's true. Boston was huge, but Philly was, goddamn, Philly drew some big crowds, but maybe that was later on in the 70s. Boston was bigger in the 60s. Point is, you asked about Philly. Philly was one of the biggest towns consistently in the Northeast territory, the old WWF. And then when it was just such a great city for wrestling, when Crockett started expanding, well, first was the Pro Wrestling USA thing came to Baltimore. And then Crockett kind of took over that Northeastern expansion. And the two cities that we had incredible success in were Baltimore and Philadelphia. Crockett could never get into New York. Even when he did, the Nassau Coliseum, that thing was a goddamn clusterfuck. Whenever we went to New York State, in the smaller towns, it wasn't really very good. Boston, the first time Crockett went, the Boston Garden in April of 87, we did a $100,000 house, had over 10,000 people, but we couldn't keep it. It didn't do that well after that. The Northeast was a particular kind of fan that liked the WWF style, but because Philly and Baltimore were just such wrestling crazy towns, and there was a building that in each that was comparable to where Vince was running. For a while, when we ran Baltimore at the Civic Center, they were doing Cap Center in Landover. But anyway, those two towns went for both styles of wrestling. And specifically in Philly, it was a lot of people who didn't get into the WWF anymore by the 80s because it had gotten too cartoon. Philadelphia loved blood and guts and violence and fights. And they got that more with Crockett than they did at that era with Vince's products. So, that was also the first place. Philly, even more than I think New York, blossomed the first group of smart fans because when it initially happened, it was like the spread of COVID. They were all around each other because they were that hardcore group of fans that hung out at the hotel or waited for the guys at the airport or whatever. And so it became more of an area that smart fan tailored shows like Joel Goodhart's. Let's do these dream matches. Let's have the Sheik versus Abdullah the Butcher. If we did that match on a WWF show, it wouldn't draw 15 cents, but we'll sell it to these fans that are listening to the radio show and it'll draw a fortune. So, yeah, you could kind of see that Philadelphia was going to go to a different style and something different just because we used to joke about it. The boys, when we'd go up there, we'd say, well, they're going to fucking boo the shit out of the dynamic dudes because they hate them, because they love us, because it's Philly and they like the heels and the horsemen. If it was Charleston, South Carolina, it'd be exact opposite. But
man, I'll tell you, when I was 12, I went to Halloween Havoc 92, one of the worst shows ever in Philly. But the opening match made it worth it. The opening match in Philly, you had a babyface team of the Z-Man, Johnny Gunn, who was Tom Brandi, and Shane Douglas, who got booed. I mean, they were babyfaces. I'd never experienced anything like this. They got booed brutally, and then the heels come out to a thunderous babyface pop, and it was to Bad Street USA, Bobby Eaton, Arn Anderson, and Michael P.S. Hayes.
Yeah.
And Philly exploded. I'd never experienced anything like that, where the heels were the most over guys on the show.
Well, Philly was where the Midnight beat Tully and Arn for the belts when Tully and Arn were leaving. So that cemented us there in Philly because they knew they had gotten an unplanned title change. Philly loved the Four Horsemen, and the Horsemen loved Philly, and all those promos that Flair did about the Marriott or the airport Marriott, that was legitimate. And Michael Hayes, the free bird with the goddamn music. But that was the same place at the Civic Center in 89, Midnight versus Dynamic Dudes, the famous night where they brought the big sign, and all of a sudden we're getting heat on fucking Shane in the match as normal, and the people start chanting, "Johnny sucks dick, Johnny sucks dick." And I look up and somebody's got a white bed sheet and they've spray painted "Johnny sucks Shane's dick." And they've hung it over the fucking general admission railing up in the building, and everybody's chanting that. And fucking Johnny Ace is standing over there in a corner with his head down, and they're getting heat on Shane. And fucking the Midnight brings Shane over to get the shot with the racket right at ringside, and I turned around and walked away from him. And later on, he's like, "Why didn't you hit me?" I said, "I was afraid to get too close of you. There might have been snipers," right? They just hated the fucking baby faces. And it turned when we started going to Philly in 86 at the Civic Center, late 85. That's when Dennis Coralluzzo and Frank Chili used to have to get me and Bobby Eaton and Dennis Condrey after the matches. And to get out the back door, they'd have Gino Moore back his panel van up, and they'd rush us out the back door and slam the doors, and Gino would try to drive through the people, and you'd see the fucking sides of the van bowing in where the people were beating on it trying to get to us because they hated us, wanted to kill us. And fucking less than 3 years later, we were the most popular tag team in town, and we were still heels. So it completely changed between 85 and 88. And when we first started going up there, I thought, of any town that we work for Jim Crockett, we're going to have a riot here at the Philadelphia Civic Center. We will cause a riot in this building, and somebody's going to get hurt. That was the crowd. And 2 years later, like I said, fuck the Midnight Express before anybody else gave a shit as far as cheering us. That was Philadelphia.
And again, the fans were unique. They were cheering the heels and cheering violence before a lot of other fans, especially here in the Northeast. And a lot of those fans who sat ringside at the NWA shows would be sitting ringside at the Joel Goodhart shows. How much credit do you think Joel Goodhart deserves for, or how much blame do you think he deserves, depending on how you see it, for the Philadelphia style, the future ECW style?
Well, no, because think about this. Goodhart started running. It was after we were on one of his first shows. Stan and I quit in 1990, so he didn't start running until 1991.
No, 1990. He was running in 90.
Okay.
Yeah.
The fans were already going in that direction. They were already the smartest group, and I mean that in terms of insider wrestling knowledge, not necessarily overall intelligence. And I had many friends in Philly, but some of them were, but they were a group of smart fans. They already liked the violence. They already liked the blood. Joel Goodhart started booking shows specifically for those fans rather than the ones that went to the WWF at the Spectrum, or even by that point WCW at the Civic Center. The dream, like we talked about this on a program here recently, Abdullah the Butcher versus the Sheik. In 1991, that match was for the hardcore fan that knew that was something of nostalgia days. He tried to put together Nature Boy Buddy Rogers versus Buddy Landell. He had me and Stan Lane wrestle as a team as the Midnight Express against Bobby and Jackie Fulton, the Fantastics. He brought in names that, that would appeal to the hardcore newsletter reading, tape trading fan, but that were intended to draw crowds of 2,500 to 3,000 people instead of 10,000. And that's what, with Goodhart, he was drawing those big crowds of 2,500 to 3,000 people in that building he was running, but he was paying. Not only did he fly almost everybody in on the whole card, but he was paying big money to some of these guys to do these things. The Sheik was not wrestling regularly in 1991. It took a bit to get him over from Michigan. I think me and Stan got $1,000 or $1,500 a piece back then for that. So he was drawing crowds that were about as big as his building could hold, and he was still losing money. But he was doing it because he wanted, and where does this sound familiar? He wanted to put these dream matches together on his shows and be noted as the guy that could book these matches that nobody else could present to the fans. And it was like, instead of writing it down in his notebook in his basement as a fan, now he was actually buying the plane tickets and paying the money to have these guys come do it. And the last show he was going to do was the Landell versus Buddy Rogers match, which they could have had a heck of a match, because both Buddy was smart enough to do anything Buddy Rogers wanted to do, and they would have done something that would have been entertaining. But he folded up. Goodhart did, took all the ticket money, went underground. Nobody saw him for ages because he had, even though he was practically selling that building out, he was losing money. And then that led to the people in Philadelphia thinking, okay, now we're supposed to get all these goddamn revolutionary smart fan matches that nobody else gets. And that's when ECW and started filling that void. And Paul Lee had more of an idea of building an ongoing modern business. Goodhart wanted to do nostalgia and bring in the stars that he liked and put on those special matches. And Todd Gordon was probably just happy to be in the wrestling business. I think Paul Lee saw that's why he figured out however it was that he Iggy'd Eddie Gilbert out. Paul Lee probably just winded.
I don't think Eddie did himself any favors. Remember, Todd hires Eddie full time to move to Philadelphia and produce a Memphis-style wrestling show in Philly.
Yeah.
And Eddie's personal problems got in the way, and he started having problems with Todd, and Paul was there and always ambitious and always looking to book. So while he certainly screwed over his friend in a sense, Eddie was going one way or another. Todd had enough.
I'm sure that Paul was there telling Eddie everything he needed to hear to wind him up even further on whatever he was upset about. I've told you what Paul did to me when I quit, right? WCW.
No.
Oh, fuck. After me and Stan walked out of WCW that time, Paul Lee was one of the people that thought it was a negotiating tactic. And he would call me at my house in Charlotte. But he did this 3 or 4 times, maybe once a month. I can't remember how, but you got them right where you want them. They're going to give you anything you want. I said, Paul, I'm not coming back. I don't care. I hate Jim Herd. I don't want to be there. I'm done. I'm going to do something else. Okay. Right. And then I'd hear from him that you got them right where you want them. They're dying to get you back. They'll give you anything. Paul, this is not a negotiating tactic. I'm not coming back. Of course, I think he was probably trying to make sure and reassure himself that I wasn't coming back, but he would do that. And then he would talk about, after he'd asked you and say, well, they'll do anything, right? Then he'd say, well, so-and-so and such, and he'd paint a picture of what a prick Herd was and how they were fucking everything up to make it like, why would anybody want to come back here? But you're going to get them for everything you want. He's trying to backhand. He knows I'm not coming back. I'm telling him. Of course, with Paul, there's an element of he wouldn't believe anybody because he'd never tell anybody the truth himself. But he wanted to make sure by reminding me how miserable it was, at the same time getting reassured I wasn't coming back. But I mean, he'd be the kind of guy that would put his arm around your fucking shoulder and walk you to the door as he was talking to you about how you ought to stay. So I'm sure that he was probably winding Eddie up, agreeing with Eddie and taking the support position of Eddie. So on whatever Eddie's issue was, that's the way that it's the same thing as we talked about the Dark Side of the Ring episode with Dynamite Kid, when a talented ribber and shit disturber like Curt Hennig could just say the right thing at the right time when somebody is already leaning in a direction to send them all the way off the edge in that direction. But anyway, once Paul Lee got it, then he turned it into more of an ongoing modern promotion with new faces and etc. for what it was the same time as grunge, and he'd seen what Philly liked, so he tried to appeal to the smart fan that was already there, and then tried to make more smart fans by smartening more people up. And it was like everything else Paul does. It works until it doesn't, because he can keep it floating for a while because he's so smart, and he just in some cases he can stave off the inevitable for a while, but it was only going to go so far because Paul E. was really, Smoky Mountain got too big to be small, but was too small to be big. Paul E. really got ahead of himself in terms of pay-per-view and all that stuff that was way above the reach of their television network or their infrastructure as a company. And they just, they dribbled the ball for a long time, but they finally had to fucking, let it go. And so and then somebody said, when we did that business comparison a while back, somebody said, well, Paul went out of business because he was owed millions of dollars from the pay-per-view company. Well, if he was owed millions of dollars from the pay-per-view company, why didn't he take the millions of dollars that they would have had to pay him eventually if it was a real deal and buy ECW back out of the bankruptcy thing? There were no millions of dollars that were coming in that were going to change the situation at that point in time.
Well, Jim, Paulie tried to hold on to a lot there, and of course we've all seen that he did spend a lot of time trying to hold on to his hair. He finally gave up on that. You have to wonder what else is going on with Paulie and body hair.
Well, I'll tell you what, the absolute worst transition in the history of podcasting advertising. We go from Paul Heyman to Manscaped. I don't know if Paul Heyman has ever manscaped himself. He looks very unsavory in all the parts that are visible. I can't imagine that the parts that are invisible and hidden from polite view would be any more attractive. But folks, if you're growing the Amazonian rainforest between your legs, or maybe the stench coming from your crotchal area would gag a maggot off a gut wagon or smell like a man eating Fremunda cheese in a septic tank of a slaughterhouse, regardless, you need to groom yourself better. It's summertime. Father's Day's just around the corner. You might need a gift for your hairy father. It's hotter out there. We need to keep sleek and trim so mildew doesn't set in. So with hot weather, with Father's Day, and just a general lack of personal grooming from some male members of society that I've seen, you need the folks at Manscaped. And right now, the brand new Lawnmower 4.0, 4.0, the finest personal grooming product yet invented, and one of the nicest appliances I've got in my home, along with the Ultra Smooth package, is perfect for you right here at this time for Father's Day or any day or Summer's Day. The Lawnmower 4.0, waterproof, 7,000 RPM trimmer with the skin-safe technology. It's helped reduce ball nicking around the world. There's a multi-function on and off switch. There's a travel lock so it doesn't start vibrating in your bag on the plane. The Lawnmower 4.0 has a 4,000K LED spotlight so you can backlight those pubic hairs and make them look like the redwood forest. There's guard links, etc. And also in the Ultra Smooth package, the crop exfoliator keeps your groin feeling refreshed and reducing the risk of ingrown hairs. The crop gel, you can see where you're shaving. It's clear gel. And the crop shaver with precision blades, including extra wide lubricating strips, a pivoting head. I always want my head to pivot. Pivoting head is the best kind of head. Anyway, if you go to manscaped.com, what's the matter with you? If you go to manscaped.com/JCE, you can get 20% off and free shipping for the perfect package. The Lawnmower 4.0 is part of the Ultra Smooth package. So the Manscaped Ultra Smooth package, 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com/JCE. Make sure your head is pivoting head.
Well, let's quickly pivot to another question here, Jim.
Because sometimes they just go up and down, and that can get old and boring. But pivoting head
at the Marriott. Well, let's get some more questions here, Jim, before we wrap things up. This has been a very popular topic for the last day. Several people have sent in questions.
For the last day?
For the emails I'm looking at right now from yesterday and today. So I'm assuming it just happened.
Well, we get so many.
We've gotten a lot about this one, and we've also gotten tweets about it. I'm going to read a couple questions because they tackle this in two different ways from what I'm seeing here. This first question, sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Catman. On a podcast from Saturday night, Dave Meltzer said, quote, Roman Reigns and Kenny Omega are essentially the same character. What? Later in the same podcast, he stated that, quote, AEW has built an organization that is worth a lot of money right now. It wouldn't go for $5 billion like WWE, but it would be a pretty expensive buy right now because it's doing very good ratings. He wanted to hear your thoughts on those, but let me real quick follow up on that. This email was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Daniel in Staten Island. He has a full quote here from Dave. Here's the quote. Roman Reigns and Kenny Omega are essentially the same character in the sense that they are heels who are being groomed to be the top babyface star down the line of the promotion. AEW is at least trying to book in a way that makes the matches exciting, and WWE is trying to book Roman Reigns and tell you, it doesn't matter, he's going to kill the guy. What are your thoughts, Jim, on Dave comparing Roman Reigns to Kenny Omega? Essentially the same.
That was a babbling and incoherent explanation of what... I don't even know where to start. There is absolutely no similarity whatsoever between Roman Reigns and Kenny Olivier, and Uncle Dave has tried to shoehorn one in there by saying they're both being booked now as top heels with the thought to be top baby faces in the future. Well, goddamn, you could actually apply that to anybody that's ever been a top baby face or a top heel in any company.
That's true.
Because you're always booking if they're a heel. Yes, you're booking them like they're a heel now, and I bet we can switch them babyface. What the fuck? It's not like they're taking some guy from jerking the curtain and putting him a surprise. He's in the main event. He's a champion now. Whatever. That doesn't make any sense. He's grasping at straws.
Yeah, that wouldn't make them essentially the same character because the idea is eventually you could turn them. They are not in any way the same character.
And besides that, can you think... They tried Olivier as a babyface, and he was an annoying, smarmy, fucking goofy talking, fucking effeminate acting, fucking just doofus who couldn't take anything seriously. And nobody got behind him as a babyface past the people that had already drunk that Kool-Aid because they wanted to see him do the flips and have the match with Okada, who doesn't work for that company, by the way. He didn't get over as a babyface to anybody that hadn't already seen him or didn't already know who he was, and he's the same thing as a heel. So Roman Reigns is on a larger platform with more history behind him and has been a personality on television for years now and has a tremendous upside because he looks like a grown man, speaks like a grown man, and fights like a grown man. So, apart from the analogy that Dave tried to shoehorn in there that they're both top guys being booked to potentially be top guys again, some more, there's no resemblance and no comparison. And
that's the thing. Roman Reigns is a top heel character with Paul Heyman, and the entire character and every storyline's based around intimidation, and Kenny Omega and Callis are doing bad comedy.
But there's always an analogy for Uncle Dave, because if he happens to see a TV commercial that says, Sears Die Hard batteries, 3 for $100, on sale right now at AutoZone, he would write that, some of the wrestlers on AEW have cars that have batteries in them, and those cars run much better than the cars owned by the folks in the WWE. It doesn't make any difference. He's going to try to equate AEW with something in his, and that it's everybody's been putting out the rumor, and we've joked about it, that Dave's on the payroll, and he may or may not be, but nobody would do this just for money. this is some kind of personal grudge he's got against the rest of the world who's seen through it and who is offended at his constant support of this bullshit. And so he's doubling down. No, they're actually great. Everything about it is great. Everything they do has a purpose. Everything means something. No, it doesn't. Everybody's seeing it now. That's why everybody's shooting Dave shit down now. That's why it's become so desperate. What are they? It's like one of the, I don't know if it's the right term, the catfishing is when they.
No, that's different.
That's when they dupe someone. When some guy just can't get over a fucking girl and talks constantly about her even though she's not interested in him, and everything she does is perfect. Dave is like one of those, it's like Cartman when he had the girlfriend on South Park. Oh, you're so funny. Girls are so funny. He's fawning over AEW, and nobody would do it to this extreme, even if they were being paid. He's just pissed that most people don't like the bullshit wrestling he likes now. And he can't just move on from it. No matter what topic you raise, the sun's going to come out tomorrow. Yeah, and AEW is going to be even greater with that sunlight on it. Everything ties into AEW for him. And it's sad. And he's lost a lot of fucking people that used to really enjoy talking to him over it.
It's, AEW is one thing, and obviously Dave's relationship with Tony Khan, and there's something to be said for that. But to me, it's specific to Omega and the Bucks. Dave anointed them, and Dave looks to protect them, in my eyes, as someone who reads The Observer.
But, okay,
if Omega had just wrestled that Tokyo Dome match, and that was it, people other than Jim Cornette would have said, that was a really great match. Let's see what's next year. Dave was the one that singled Omega out and gave him star ratings that no one else has ever received multiple times. Dave took a personal interest in Omega and the Bucks, and if you reject...
Dave is the one who said that the Young Bucks are the modern-day Midnight Express, which I took great offense to and cussed him out for and haven't spoken to him since, because he was fucking full of bullshit.
And that's the problem. If you reject the wrestlers that Dave is specifically anointing, I think Dave takes that personal, like you're rejecting his place as a wrestling expert.
Okay, but here's the thing. Everybody's rejecting it. Except for these fucking kids that they have made fans of their shit that have never seen wrestling performed well before. Everybody else goes, what the fuck is this children's fucking hour? And if Dave is upset that he anointed these people and now people are seeing through them and they know it's all bullshit, does it make him look worse to admit, well, it was at a different place in Japan and they looked better in that environment or whatever, and try to mitigate it, the stupid things he said a little bit to keep his respect with people? Or does he in turn then just sound like a goddamn jilted lover on meth and fucking shoot at everybody that tries to say anything bad about these fucking darlings of his, to the point where now everybody thinks he really has lost his mind? It's not in any way even objective anymore. He's just lost his fucking mind. And the longer you've known him, the more you think he's lost.
And for the record, I think he genuinely does like the Young Bucks matches. That's why the most basic 9-minute match with all the usual shenanigans and no rules and just nonstop moves, he'll say that's 4.5 stars with psychology on the next level that the most basic fan who's been reading The Observer for years could never grasp. It's what he likes. This is what he likes. And it's what he
I wish somebody would sit him down and ask him to write down, watch this match and tell me what the psychology is. Write that down for me, what that psychology is.
Well, Jim, our next one, several people have sent in. I don't know how familiar you are with it because I didn't know anything about it. But I guess a feud of sorts, words back and forth on social media between your favorite NXT referee, former referee, Drake Wirtz, and someone who you've spoken out against for years, Ian Rotten. I'm just seeing this. Have you seen this?
I've seen it. I remarked on it yesterday on Twitter. Ian Rotten refused to book the QAnon referee because his locker room got up in arms. Ian Rotten, that's what I tweeted. I said, how much of a piece of shit do you have to be when Ian Rotten won't book your ass? This is a guy who literally, not only has he run garbage deathmatch shows for years and years and years, he's the guy that caused the state of Kentucky to have the most stringent athletic commission regulations in the country. He's the guy that brought all the horrible publicity on wrestling in the Kentuckiana area, and before OVW nearly got wrestling put out of business in this part of the country because of his garbage deathmatch wrestling bullshit. He's the guy that moved over to a converted roller skating rink in Indiana where there's no commission to have these fucking human cockfighting shows of his. He's the one, Ian Rotten, that was actually fucking made to work on the cash register instead of the fucking food line at the Taco Bell where his real job was, his real employment, because they were concerned that he had hepatitis C, so they made him wear fucking plastic latex gloves and work the cash register while his tests were coming through. I don't think he works at the Taco Bell anymore. I don't know what the result of the test was. This is the same Ian Rotten who legitimately paid one of his deathmatch quote-unquote wrestlers in pain pills for one of his death quote-unquote matches, and the guy, no quote-unquote, actually did die of an overdose.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that.
As a result of that, yeah, that Bailey kid.
Oh, shit. That's right.
There was two garbage promotions. One garbage promotion was down south of Louisville, and one garbage promotion was here in Louisville. And the son of the garbage promoter down south was the wrestler that fucking died of an overdose because Ian paid him in pain pills. This was a whole fucking problem, especially years ago. And I mean, this Ian Rotten is still running his shit in these barns wherever he can stay away from. I think they got kicked out of another building for blood being splattered everywhere. But if he can find a barn he can put up his cheap ring in, he'll run a fucking deathmatch show still to this day. But it was big around here, deathmatch shit, years ago. And thankfully, through the hard work of OVW, the State Athletic Commission, and everybody involved in wanting to see wrestling prosper, we shut that shit down as much as possible in the state of Kentucky. But anyway, so now, because we've said that QAnon referee, old Drake Wirtz, the Trump-sucking fucking COVID denier and goddamn Proud Boy wannabe, I've never even met him and I hate him. He is now, since the WWE fired him for being a fucking religious fanatic and a goddamn lunatic at city council meetings in Florida on their time, apparently old Drake wasn't real good with his finances because he's immediately started begging every outlaw promoter in sight to give him a job. And one of them was Ian Rotten because Drake, QAnon referee, used to be a deathmatch garbage wrestler. That's back when he was addicted to drugs. And then he got off the drugs and got addicted to God, religion, and Trump and became even more of a mental case. And now Ian Rotten tried to book the guy that he used to fucking book all the time on his garbage shows, but his entire locker room apparently nipped up and said, fuck this guy, and fuck what he thinks, and fuck what he believes, and fuck what he stands for. And fucking Ian Rotten unbooked him. And then Drake Wirtz started motherfucking Ian Rotten. I love it when these pieces of shit can't get along. They're all subhuman fucking subterranean swamp dwellers, and they deserve all this shit. Fucking airlifting people bleeding out of their fucking shows, wrapping them up and ripping them in barbed wire, paying off in pain pills. Fucking guys going through broken glass and slicing arteries. Bad publicity on wrestling. That's what all these garbage match, death match fucks are. And I wish the worst for all of them. And I'm glad to see that QAnon referee, why don't you go find the Trump family and suck a few of those dicks, Drake? Since you want to anyway, that would be the most romantic thing that could ever happen to you is to get Donald Schlong in your fucking mouth. Maybe he'll pay you. He usually pays his fucking whores. At least he just doesn't pay any of the rest of his bills. I love it. I love it. And Ian Rotten, a piece of shit on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling pieces of shit. And he comes off like the moral high ground with this guy. That just shows you how bad off that fucking old Drake is. I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying it. I want to see. And Nick Gage is going to be next. He's got to rob something else and go back to jail. That would make me almost as happy as my little baby birds out the window. If all these deathmatch wrestlers basically came to the fucking end that they deserve.
All right, well, let's get a few more questions before we wrap things up. Jim, several questions have come in about Bret Hart since last week's biography, which was fantastic. Anyone who hasn't seen it, go out of your way to see it.
And say it. Go out of your way to say it and then see it.
Jim, this question is from Stuart in Ontario to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com. Where would you put Bret Hart on the list of best wrestler that is the son of a promoter?
Oh, okay. That's a different way of asking a question. God damn. Very high. Very high when you think about it, because, I mean, there's been a few second generation. Look, Curt Hennig was a better in-ring performer than Larry Hennig, even though if Curt never got a chance to be a main event guy for as long as his dad. Jeff Jarrett was a better worker than Jerry Jarrett, but Jerry's appeal to wrestling, or, you know, whatever was his mind, he was not a classic worker, but he got tons of sympathy because his psychology was matchless. Right now I'm thinking, you know, fuck, Owen may be one of the guys that might challenge Bret for being the best son of a promoter, but you're still in the Hart family. Let's go to help me. Who am I overlooking that overachieved, if not in business terms, their father's working ability? Because you can say, you know, the promoters that had sons that became wrestlers, the sons were generally almost never the box office attraction that the father was. In this case, Bret was bigger than his dad ever was. Sometimes, but not often, the sons were better workers, but they weren't as big an attraction. Who can you come up with off the top of your head?
Terry Funk.
There you go.
Don Leo Jonathan.
Good.
That's an early one, too. I mean, he was one of the first second generation guys, I guess, when you think about it.
Yeah.
Bob Orton Jr.
Yeah.
I don't know. Was Bob Orton Jr. probably the better in-ring guy than his dad, but was he a bigger star than Bob Orton Sr.?
No.
Right.
Bob Orton Sr. was more of a main event guy in the previous era and for longer a period of time. Orton Jr. was a tremendous worker and obviously was a main event talent, but not to the level as a single or the longevity of his dad.
I don't think you could put any of the Von Erichs above Fritz.
No. I mean, once again, better performers in the ring, but not the draws.
Again, different type of performer.
Some people are also going to say, wait a minute, you're crazy. Kerry Von Erich drew 42,000 people to Texas Stadium. That was to see him win the world title in memory of his brother who had just died and made the front page of every paper, whereas Fritz drew 26,000 people to see him against Dory Funk Jr. for just a title match. So, and Fritz was for longer and more places and bigger, etc.
And I'm a big Kerry fan. However, David drew that house.
Yeah.
As much as Kerry did.
Yeah.
We brought up Bob Orton Sr. and Jr. before. Obviously, Randy Orton. It's the third generation there. Jeff Jarrett was a good one.
Randy has drawn more money than either his dad or even his granddad, but still, that spread of generations, it becomes a different time. Randy Orton has been on major shows that drew much more money, but that was part of the WWF package, whereas Bob Orton Sr. still for an equivalent long period of time, but in multiple areas around the world for multiple promoters, was a main event guy. So, but when you go grandfather to grandson, the whole economics and structure and everything of the business has changed so much you can't compare it. Because Randy would be I've only seen some film clips of Bob Orton Sr. By God, I don't have a time machine, and some things are even before my time. But Bob Orton Jr. was a tremendous in-ring performer. Randy, I don't think you can say is as good all around as Bob was, but was probably better than Bob Orton Sr. Now it sounds like we're doing the opening of the Guns of Will Sonnet, and that's for you TV fans in the audience.
I mean, Randy Savage, Angelo Poffo, obviously Savage became a worldwide star.
Yeah. That's true. Actually, Savage and Angelo may be a better example than Bret and Stu, because Stu was probably a bigger name than Angelo, wasn't he? I mean, not in Chicago maybe, but in
their
places,
respective local area. You're talking about, Stu in Calgary versus Angelo in Illinois. Yeah, I think.
Well,
so.
yeah, and maybe even because Stu wrestled in a number of places before, in the 40s and 50s when they were both active together. Stu would have been a bigger name than Angelo. Angelo was active after Stu had already retired. And then, he went more places, blah, blah, blah. We could argue this all day.
When you really look at the body of work over a career, who was the bigger star? Joe Blanchard or Tully Blanchard?
Ooh, honestly, Joe Blanchard.
That's what I was thinking too.
Because Tully was a main event guy from, 1976, 77 in San Antonio for his dad all the way through 88 with the Horsemen and then the WWF run and then was done, whereas Joe Blanchard was a top guy and a main event star for 15 years or more and then, got out of the ring to become a promoter. So Joe actually headlined more as a single, especially, worked more places, and was featured more than Tully ever was.
Yeah, and again, we're looking at the son of a promoter, not necessarily just a second. I mean, I named the Ortons before I went off target. I went to just second generation, third generation. Son of a promoter, it's Bret, it's the Funks, Jeff Jarrett, like you said, Mike Graham. Who else would be the son of a promoter?
I mean, Brian Christopher.
Gene LaBelle.
Well, no, come on. Come on. Brian Christopher was not as good as Jerry Lawler.
But he was great. Honestly,
he was great on his own, but to compare him to, it was just unfair because almost nobody was as good as Lawler at anything in his prime.
Bob Armstrong was a promoter. He owned a piece of Southeastern, so I guess you could say Brad. Well, again, it's different. Brad was for that in-ring work of that style was great, but Bob could talk and work.
Well, as we've mentioned this before, Road Dogg ended up being the biggest worldwide star and was the worst worker in the family. The worst in-ring athletic worker in the family, but he was the best promo except for Bob. Scott was the one that was painfully thin and too small, but he was the kind of the business mind because he ended up promoting his own shows and refereeing and being a booking things. Steve was the most naturally athletic and had the most size, but he couldn't talk and he didn't have the mind to do like booking shit. Brad was the best in-ring worker and had a great looking body and was the son that had got the most of Bob's attributes. But basically every son got one of Bob's attributes, but Bob had every single one of them. His physique was amazing. He could work his ass off. He could talk. And he was believable, and he had a mind for booking and the business. So, but then, because of the change in the business, Road Dogg gets on worldwide TV and is a bigger star in terms of name recognition, but he wasn't ever featured on his own as a main event single guy like Bob was in territories all around the South. You'll find that a lot of times a promoter's son fits into one of two categories. An excellent talent in the ring who was never able to accomplish what his dad did, even though he was a better wrestler, or he was pushed completely because he was the promoter's son and he was a drizzling fucking shits and never wrestled anywhere but except for his father, George Goulas.
Here's a question. What sons of promoters took over their father's business and actually made it bigger? Crockett Jr., I guess you could say.
Well, but neither one were wrestlers, but yeah, Crockett Jr. actually did expand, even though his dad had it for 40 years and it was still doing great. And then Jimmy had it for 15 and brought it bigger than it ever was and then put it out of business.
True.
I'm trying to think of any other son who took over their father's business and didn't run it out of business.
Other than Vince. All right. Well, we'll think about this one. Jim, what may be our final question? We shall see. Sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Matt.
I can tell you which way I'm voting, but go ahead.
From Matthew in Humboldt. The recent A&E biography featuring Bret Hart showed the Hitman's talent as an artist and cartoonist. It's known that Bret would often draw cartoons in the locker room to entertain the boys. My question is, if Bret ever drew a cartoon featuring Jim, does Jim have any stories or memories of any of Bret's locker room cartoons? And if I could expand this a little further, Jim, other than Bret and Lawler, were there other guys known as locker room artists? Tony Atlas, I guess?
Yet to Adrian Street. Well, the question first, no, I don't remember ever being cartooned, lampooned, caricatured, or whatever by Bret. I've got one that Lawler did of me. I've had hanging on my office wall here. But I remember seeing a bunch of Brets. I mean, he could do it anywhere. If he just came in the locker room and if we were in a place where there was a chalkboard, like sometimes the sports locker rooms have the chalkboards for the coach and everything. He'd just find a couple of pieces of colored chalk and draw some kind of thing. When you'd go in, it looks like at Chili's when they do the menu on the blackboard. It was really nice looking, but he'd just draw some caricature of some of the guys doing something. And as you mentioned, they showed some of them. And Adrian Street was the same way in the dressing room when I remember one in Memphis he drew because he had known Jonathan Boyd and Luke Williams, who were the pairing of the Sheepherders at that time. This was 1982, 83. He'd known them from, years before because they'd all traveled the world. And especially Luke, Jonathan was always grumpy, but Luke was a fun-loving, a wonderful guy and always laughing. I remember Adrian sat down one time at one of the spot shows that we were in a high school, and there was a sketch pad. And we look around 30 minutes later, and there is a big caricature on this 18 by 24-inch sketch pad paper of the Sheepherders, Luke Williams and Jonathan Boyd, with Boyd's bald head and Luke's tongue out and slobbering and sweat coming off of him, and they're flying the New Zealand flag. Remember the Sheepherders flag that they used to have? And it wasn't until you looked close you realized that the Sheepherders flag pole was Luke Williams's veiny, fucking throbbing 3-foot-tall dick that he was holding as the flagpole. Because Adrian always put a little X-rated stuff into his caricatures. And Lawler could do that. He could sit down and just, sketch anything that he saw or anything from memory even. I've watched him do it. So, but yes, in answer to the original question, Bret did a lot of those. As you can see from the A&E biography, apparently he kept them, and they're in multiple file folders that he had for just such an occasion. A lot of the guys, Lawler ripped something off and just handed away, or Adrian would whatever, but Bret kept a lot of his shit. But yeah, it was just something to do to break everybody up, give somebody a tickle, relieve tension, or just whatever, or just pass the time. And it's amazing that some of those guys have the talent to see that and do that. And that was always, Lance Russell used to make this point, and I believe it. If you're an artist, you have to have incredible hand-to-eye coordination. You have to be able to put your hand in minute increments exactly where you want it, right? And you have to be able to see something clearly and look at it. And that's what he attributed to Lawler's almost science fiction-like ability to fucking throw a punch to within 1/8 of an inch of what he's fucking doing, or just all the things, the hand-eye coordination. And you see with Bret, his shit always looked good and was sharp, but didn't hurt people. Part of it's athletic ability, but part of it has to be your coordination from the way your brain processes things. And it seems to be more helpful if you're an artist than if you're the goddamn guy that pumps the septic tanks out.
But with that,
1, 2, 3, 4.
The drive-thru is closed. You can hear more from Jim and myself on the Jim Cornette Experience when it debuts Saturday, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Don't forget, next week, right back here on the Drive Thru. Get access to classic episodes of the Drive Thru and the Experience by becoming a patron. Patreon.com/Cornette. For only $5 a month, you get access to the archive of the Experience and the Drive Thru from the beginning in 2013. Right now, we are uploading shows from 2017, episodes added each and every week. We just put up Jim's 2-part interview with the Universal Heartthrob, Austin Idol. Check it out today. Patreon.com/Cornette. Also, subscribe to the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel, over 220,000 strong and growing each and every day. On our march to 1 million, get access to full episodes, clips of episodes, omnibus collections, and so much more, all with the exclusive Travis Heckel artwork. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. You can follow Jim on Twitter at @TheJimCornette. You can follow me on Twitter at @GreatBrianLast. You can hear me on the 605 Superpodcast at 605pod.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Cornette's Collectibles at JimCornette.com.
Coming soon. New website, new store, new products, same old cranky proprietor.
At JimCornette.com. The Drive Thru is brought to you by the Law Office of Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. But until Friday on The Experience, and Saturday on The Experience, and next week right back here on the Drive Thru. For Jim Cornette, I'm the Great Brian Last. Tally-ho!